Look! Hey look! It's Sister Elia. Brother Ghost. As soon as the disciples saw Michael and Gaia in the sky, the disciples roaming around the sect began to cause turmoil. Michael waved at them for a few moments before flying directly into Claire's manor. Right then, Claire was meeting with a few elders from the other sects and discussing merging the sects with the Sunrise sect. You don't have to worry about independence, Elder Marcy. We will provide everything you need and let you govern yourself, except our elders will offer you guidance to make the sect greater. Claire sat with one leg atop another. By sitting like this, she looked extremely dominant. Coupled with her core-strengthening stage level 8 cultivation, the aura she radiated made the elders absolutely submissive. If you are in agreement with our terms, visit Broadriver and meet Elder Ella there. She will guide you through the process, Claire said. It will be a pleasure to be a part of the Sunrise sect, sect leader. A brown-haired man stood up from his seat, bowed towards Claire, and shook her hand with absolute respect in his eyes. Instead of entering the hall to meet Claire, Michael and Gaia waited in the hallway, looking at Claire. The elders finally winded up the discussion a few minutes later and stood up to leave. Only then did they notice Michael and Gaia. When they saw the couple, the elders were startled. They might haven't recognized Gaia, but they recognized Michael almost instantly. Young Master Ghost. No, you Majesty Ghost. Relax, ladies and gentlemen. Michael raised his hand with a calm smile as Claire's eyes went wide. Elia, the sect leader, almost dashed at Gaia, ignoring the elders. Fortunately, she controlled the urge to hug Gaia for a few moments. After exchanging a few pleasantries with the elders, Michael respectfully sent the elders away. How is it going, Claire? Gaia gently punched Claire in the shoulder, only to get hugged and squeezed by the blonde. It's so nice to see. Where were you all this time? Michael calmly rested his butt on the comfy sofa and waited for the maid to stop cowering in the corner and come to him. You know, having some alone time, cultivating, adventuring and murdering humans. Huh? Just kidding. Except for the last part. Gaia chuckled, making Claire frown. Kidding again. The latest _studies are on a website. Gaia patted Claire on the back and sat on the sofa with her. Finally, the young maid who was cowering in the corner decided to approach them. 3 avocado juice, Claire ordered. Yes. Yes, sect leader Claire. The young girl shivered, stuttering in fear. Who is she? It's a new rule of the sect. All the young people have to do some part-time jobs as a part of their studies. We believe it helped them sympathize with the commoners more, Claire explained. Ghost! Out of the blood. Olivia dashed into the manor with a pale face full of sweat beads. Told you we'll be fine. Claire was confused as Olivia dragged herself towards Michael and sat beside him. Soon, Ricky and Daniel entered the room. By the fear in Ricky's eyes, Michael could say that Olivia shared what happened on the ship with Ricky. As a result, he had to go through what happened during the alchemy competition from the beginning to the end when he got kidnapped by the pirates. Of course, Michael told them not to ask anything about what happened after the pirates kidnapped him. He had to wait to hear Sabrina's story before spreading another one. After everything was said and done about the alchemy competition, Gaia finally turned her gaze toward Olivia and Ricky. Olivia quickly realized the meaning of Gaia's sharp gaze while sitting beside Michael. Ricky, on the other hand, stood behind a sofa facing Claire and Michael with Daniel. So when were you two planning to tell us? Especially you, Ricky, Gaia said, raising her one brow in the shape of a sword. It's what? Cat got your tongue? Yet again, Claire was confused as she had no idea what was happening. She was too busy with the sect and Bradford business to notice the love tension between Olivia and Ricky. However, Daniel knew about their relationship, but he didn't get a chance to tell Ghost. Still, Daniel always advised Ricky to come clean with Ghost. These two are in love. Gaia broke the news to Claire. What? Claire couldn't help raising her voice in shock. It's okay, Ricky. You guys don't have to be scared. You did nothing wrong. I already dealt with Noah. What do you mean dealt with Noah? Claire's heart skipped a beat, thinking Ghost had killed Noah. Why don't you explain, Olivia? Michael looked at Olivia, wordlessly telling her to tell everything related to her marriage agreement with Noah. It took Olivia another 10 minutes to bring Claire up to speed. So much had happened, yet I knew nothing. I have to get some free time. Claire massaged her temples. But suddenly, Claire opened her eyes so wide Michael could see the sparkles in her eyes. Visit. For a better user experience, why don't we have a girls' night in Hades? After we deal with Lord Reginald. Speaking of Lord Reginald. Ricky, send a messenger to Lord Reginald and ask him I want to meet him tomorrow morning. Really? Ricky sounded relieved and almost excited. Yes, really. Now go. After Ricky, Daniel and Olivia left the hall. Michael decided to talk to Claire about the state of Bradford and his future position in the sect. Sect leader Claire. I think it's time I graduate from the Sunrise sect and let the Sunrise sect outshine me. Claire was surprised for a moment, but soon she just sighed. I understand you. I mean, you must be stronger than your sect leader. Way stronger, Gaia exclaimed. So what's the plan? Asked Claire. Between us, I'll always be the guardian of the sect. But to the outside world, I graduated from the sect. I will be nothing more than an old student. Claire listened to Michael's plan without uttering a word as he continued. As for the matter of Bradford, I'd prefer if you merge the kingdom with a sect. It was not Michael's idea to acquire the kingdom into the sect but Gaia's. No sect had ever acquired a kingdom. Hence, if the Sunrise sect took over Bradford, it'd be the first time in history. Think about it, Claire. After taking over the kingdom, all the citizens of Bradford would be our disciples. You will have an army to defend the sect in the future against your foes. Let's be real. Countless people might be conspiring to bring us down as we speak. So we need an army, Gaia exclaimed. Besides, it'd be less complicated to rule Bradford as the Sunrise sect rather than a separate place. We got your back, Claire, as always. Gaia wrapped her hand around Claire and reassured her. Take your time, sect leader Claire. I know it's a big decision, but trust me, it's better this way. Well, I have to talk to the elders, but are you sure you want to do this? By doing this, you're basically throwing away being the king. Michael, on the other hand, just shrugged. I don't like being the king anyway. It's not my style. Plus, being called your majesty feels wrong and weird. Really? That's your reason? Claire sighed. You basically went to war with King Bredia and killed Princess Catherine. Both of them were being such a bitch at that time. Just take your time and let us know your decision, sect leader Claire. Visit. For a better user experience, please. Call me Claire from now on. Just like your majesty ghost. Sect leader Claire feels wrong and weird. Claire giggled as Michael stood up to leave the manor. Fair. Michael nodded. And Gaia girls' night. Do not miss it. I still haven't forgotten you didn't throw a gala for getting engaged. The last time we tried to do that, a bunch of morons ambushed us and blew Hades to hell. So you sure you still want a gala? I am planning this time, and no offense, Ghost. It'll be open for only girls, Claire said to Michael. Whatever you do, do it before the end of next week. I am planning to go to our aqua auction? Claire asked. Yeah. I heard I can get some cool stuff there. Before traveling to our, however, Michael planned to deal with the pirates in the southern continent and the status of Gisel in the ongoing war between Prerid and Myril. The last time Michael heard, General Quintus was viciously attacking Prerid and slowly marching towards Prerid's capital. He assigned Cain to deal with the problem, and it was time to check on Vidora. After leaving Claire's manor, Michael and Gaia went to see their herbal garden. The herbal garden was concealed with lush green veins and giant trees. If one looked at the mountain from the distance, they wouldn't see the glass dome covering the herbal garden but the lush green mountain. As they walked towards the herbal garden, breathing in the aromatic air, they felt calm and soothed to their soul. The sound of birds chirping and crickets chittering in the herbal garden was almost music to their ears. It feels like yesterday I planted my first herb seed. 1,000 years, blue putna flower, Michael said to Gaia. Time does fly fast. Gaia nodded. After walking food for a few more minutes, they reached the colossal glass dome surrounding the herbal garden. At that moment, the herbal garden was almost half the size of a football stadium. But the crowded herbs and vegetation made the garden somewhat look smaller. As soon as they entered the garden, a few youngsters welcomed them with a bow. "How is the harvesting going?" Michael asked the blonde-haired youngster. Since he was one of the senior disciples in the sect, he didn't act like the others when he saw Michael. "Pretty great, Brother Ghost. We just brought some compost from Royal Land, and I heard Elder Reiner has ordered some rare herbs from the Phoenix auction house." "Cool. Continue your work. I just come here to pick some herbs." Michael and Gaia walked away from the youngsters, leaving them to their work. "I still can't believe that tiny human is in seclusion. Do you think she is some kind of genius?" Gaia asked while Michael was plucking some red orchids with care. "If she continues to cultivate at this rate, she would be considered as one. After all, Cindy consumed pills and potions worth millions. That could make even the mediocre cultivator a genius. Yet here you are plucking orchids to make her another potion," Gaia chuckled. "It will help her reach the core formation stage quicker. I miss having her around." "What about me? Do you miss having me around?" Gaia asked in a seductive tone and moved closer to him. "Visit. For a better user experience. Would you believe me if I said no?" Those were the last words that escaped Michael's mouth before Gaia locked her lips with his. The next day, Michael woke up early and went straight to Hades before sunrise. He had a whole of things planned ahead and decided to start the day with some strongly brewed coffee. After the ambush, Michael hired Lord Malin to provide 24/7 security to Raylene, Hades, and the Majestic. Hence, when Michael and Gaia arrived at Hades, they were greeted by two core-strengthening stage guards. Lord Ghost, Lady Elia. The two guards flanking the door bowed their heads as Michael and Gaia entered the Hades. The newly renovated Hades looked glamorous and fancier than before. Although she hated Fover, the dwarf, she couldn't help admiring his skills. Basically, it felt like she had entered another world. "God, I missed the smell of this place." Gaia took a long whiff of the air and looked around the restaurant for a few moments before walking towards the table designated for them. "Oh my God." As they sat down, Gloria, who walked out from the back door, almost jumped and gasped in shock. "Master Ghost, Miss Elia." Michael was surprised too, as he didn't expect Gloria to be here this early. "You're early?" Gaia exclaimed. "I always come early to see everything's in perfect condition, Miss Elia. It's not much, but always helps to keep the flow running smoothly." Michael appreciated Gloria's hard work. There was a reason why Michael paid a high wager to Gloria. "I heard you're planning to open up another branch in Royal Land. Come on, take a seat." Gaia gestured at Gloria to take the seat before them. At first, Gloria felt hesitant even to look them in the eyes. But after spending time with Ghost and Elia, she had grown to respect them more rather than fear them. So instead of wasting their time being reluctant, Gloria took the seat. "Tell me about this place," Gaia asked. "Well, it's located in the Noble District, close to the garrison. Nice safe spot, big 3-story building and newly built. Sounds great. Any problem buying it?" "The owner of the building is King Kramer's cousin. He is playing a little hardball." Gaia creased her brows because she sensed a reluctance in Gloria's voice, as though she was hiding something. "Gloria." After hearing the deep tone, Gloria just sighed. "It's just that guy's look, Miss Elia. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right the way he looks at Lady Raylene. I don't think he is asking for coins. Arg, I hate this." Michael scratched the back of his head. The last thing Michael wanted was to make an enemy out of King Kramer. Unlike King Bredia, King Kramer was an influential figure and the king of the most powerful kingdom in Elon. The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. "Did you look for another place?" asked Gaia, hiding the anger from showing on her face. "Yes, but they are not as good as this. That's why we've been thinking of opening a branch somewhere else." "That's a good idea. It's troublesome to deal with these spoiled young masters." Gaia sighed. Although Gloria was slightly surprised, she felt relieved. "As you wish, Miss Elia." While talking, Michael saw Raylene walking through the door and was surprised to see Ghost and Elia. "Here she is, my favorite cook in the whole world. Miss Elia." Raylene dashed at Gaia and hugged her tightly. Core formation level 7. Michael admired Raylene's cultivation level. It was apparent to him that despite her busy schedule, Raylene was spending time cultivating as he instructed her. It's so nice to see you. Where have you been? Gaia made Raylene sit beside her and ruffled Raylene's golden hair. You are glowing, Gaia commented on Raylene's silky smooth, glowy skin, making Raylene blush. How about we all have a freshly brewed coffee and talk? Michael felt bad to interrupt their reunion, but he wanted that coffee to kick his brain to plan his next moves. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll bring coffee with Miss Elia's favorite cookies. You are such a treasure. Gaia pinched Raylene's cheek to the point it turned red as a ripe tomato. You can go ahead with your work, Gloria. Michael sent away Gloria so he could start planning with Gaia. You are not going to kill him, huh? Michael raised his brows, showing his disbelief. Of course. My word is my bond. Michael chuckled, seeing her placing her 3 fingers on the chest. But that doesn't mean he won't die. Arias in Bradford, right? Michael nodded. When Michael met Arya last time, he ordered her to escort her brothers to Bradford and contact Sadie to get the twins into the military. Thanks to Sadie, Titus and Optimus had become the soldiers of Bradford's army and waiting for the Dark Lord's further instructions. It's time she does a little reconnaissance in royal land. What are you planning? Michael asked curiously. Visit. For a better user experience, a pervert fucker like him can't live without gala and parties. I bet he's having a party this weekend. So we crash the party? Gaia shrugged. We can't. He dies and we might become suspects. Not if he goes nuts and kills himself. Gaia grinned devilishly as Michael understood her plan. If someone killed that young master, the Guardians or the King's Guards might make the connection to Michael. However, no one would bat an eye if he went nuts and killed himself, as Gaia said. Fortunately, Michael happened to know how to make him go crazy. Where is Eladir? He should have gotten out by now. Gaia watched the rising sun through the window and wondered. While we are waiting for him, tell me where I get these things. Michael quickly scribbled a list of things on parchment and slid it towards Gaia. Black ivory, clean-cut sapphires, meridian ore, Ritzbury oil. Gaia read through the list of items and looked confused after reaching the list's end. What the heck are you planning to do with all these items? You can't get these items in a common auction house. Most of these items are pretty rare. I know someone who could get these items, but I don't think you'll like him. Who? Michael asked. Lord fricking Julius of Phoenix Island. Cool. However, Michael surprised Gaia with his calm tone. Well, send Daniel to meet Julius on my behalf. Wow. I thought you will be mad or what, throw a tantrum. Look, I am a fusion stage cultivator now. Holding a grudge against a puny core formation or core strengthening man is beneath me. Honestly, I don't think Julius is holding what I did against him either. Let's just send Daniel and get these items from him. When did you become such a saint? Gaia couldn't help rolling her eyes as she kinda expected Ghost to go to Phoenix Island and decimate everyone in his path, or at least kick Julius, but after all, Lord Julius tried to kill Ghost when he killed the group of youngsters who tried to kill Gaia. Yet, he proved her wrong by forgiving Julius. But I get to kill him if he still acts like a bitch. Visit. For the best known RNG experience. Fair enough. Unlike before, Michael did not have to constrain himself from making enemies. On the contrary, it was the people of Elon who shouldn't make an enemy out of Michael. As a fusion stage cultivator, Michael had the power to wipe out many noble families and sects from the face of the world. At this point in time, only peak-level fusion stage or cultivators above them could stop Michael. As they were talking, another figure entered through the door, and this time, it was Eladir. He strolled toward Michael and Gaia like he owns the place with his head held high. Look who decided to show up. Since they were in Hades, instead of bowing, Eladir just nodded and took the seat before them. Where is Nightmare? As soon as Eladir settled down, Michaela asked him about Nightmare. The moment we got out, he went to meet you in the sect. I bet he is with Claire right now. Gaia chuckled, imagining Nightmare in a bathtub full of bubbles. Eladir? Michael nodded at Eladir as the latter quickly drew a rune on the table. The dark red rune resembling a hawk glistened for a moment before vanishing into thin air. Now no one will be able to hear us. Good. So now he is here. Tell us what's our next move is? Gaia asked Michael. To be honest, Gaia felt overwhelmed by the problems in front of them. Until now, their enemies had the advantage of being stronger than them. That had changed now. Therefore, Gaia wanted to tackle the problems head-on. First things first, we need to finish what we started. We are going to Gisel and equip Big Bertha with mortar. Man, I need to see this mortar you two constantly nag about in action. Has they finished forging it, my lord? Maxine will meet us at Corey's Island with the mortar. After we finish that, I am planning to visit Aden. We can't delay making the southern continent our strong base anymore. On one hand, we have the mysterious clan of vampires who seem to be far more powerful than we imagined. On the other hand, we have Skyhall and Guardians to deal with. So I think we will all agree when I say we turn the tables to our favor and conquer the southern continent once and for all. Gaia bobbed her head up and down excitedly. But before we do that, we have an ally to make. Michael paused for a moment. The Holy Church. I am going to make a huge sum of $5 million donation in my name against the Church's war against the Dark Lord. Ooh, I get it. After deeply thinking for a few moments, Gaia understood Michael's plan. Don't tell me you don't get him. You are thousands of years old. Just use your old brain and figure it out. Why does Ghost need the Holy Church as his ally? The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. After seeing the amused look on Michael's face, Eladir really started to pick his brain to understand his plan. As far as Eladir heard from Michael, the Holy Church was hunting the Dark Lord in full force. Hence, he couldn't help wondering why Michael needed to meet the powerful organization that hunts him. After planning his next moves, Michael waited for Reginald to arrive at Hades with Gaia. As time flew, more and more nobles entered the Hades, and the restaurant began to get busy. Not even an hour passed opening the restaurant, yet all the tables got filled with nobles. A few nobles looked surprised to see Michael, but they didn't bother Michael. Finally, after the sun ultimately rose out of the horizon, Reginald entered the Hades with Olivia and Ricky. Lord Reginald. Michael stood up to firmly shake Reginald's hand. Gaia also shook his hand before everyone settled into their places. We will have 3 specials, please. Michael ordered the food on behalf of Reginald. Master Ghost, I heard about what happened in the alchemy competition. Scary business. Thank you so much for taking care of her. Reginald showed his gratitude to Michael with a nod. Lord Reginald, I asked you here to talk about Olivia. Normally, I wouldn't poke my head into others' business. But she is not an outsider. She is my student, and as a teacher, I can't ignore her well-being. Hear him out. Gaia cut Reginald short when he was about to interject Michael. I don't like to beat around the bush. These two are in love. Michael pointed at Olivia and Ricky. And I want you to marry them. If you are hesitating because he is not noble and not strong enough, this will reassure you. Reginald noticed Michael talking a parchment from his space ring and writing something on it. This contains my word to you. In 2 years, Ricky will reach the soul refining stage. In 2 months, he will be appointed as one of the elders of the Sunrise sect and no longer be just a henchman. Everyone except Gaia was startled. Teacher, Olivia stuttered as Michael slid the parchment towards Reginald. He took it in his hand and glanced at Michael's words. I think we will both agree that at the soul refining stage, Ricky can protect Olivia without anyone's help, Michael calmly said. And as an elder of the Sunrise sect, he will be influential and have a status higher than many nobles in Elon, Gaia exclaimed after Michael. Reginald was simply speechless while Ricky felt like he was about to faint. You have to think of your daughter, Lord Reginald. She asked for your permission because she loves and respects you. It's time you return the same gesture to her. If she marries another guy, she will just be a wife. But Ricky will treat her like a queen. He is a nice guy. Ricky's eyes watered, hearing Ghost vouch for him. On the other hand, Reginald just stared at Ricky and Olivia before sighing. Do you really think he can reach the soul refining stage within 2 years? The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. I don't think. I know, you have my word. After getting assurance from Michael, he couldn't reject Ricky anymore. Besides, Noah Winston had called off the marriage, so Reginald had no choice but to accept the deal from Ghost. And Ricky? While Reginald was pondering, Gaia turned her gaze towards Ricky. She is the only girl in your life. The only tears I want to see in the green eyes are happy tears. Otherwise, they'll break your bones, make a soup and feed it to you. Gaia threatened Ricky, and by the coldness of the tone, Reginald could tell she wasn't kidding. What's your answer, Lord Reginald? Reginald looked at Ricky and Olivia yet again and heaved a long breath of sigh. I have no objection to the marriage between them. We shall marry them after he reaches the soul-refining stage. Not that Reginald wanted Ricky to fail, but he truly wanted someone powerful to protect his daughter. That was the main reason why Reginald rejected Ricky. However, now that Ghost reassured him, he truly believed Ricky could reach the soul-refining stage. As far as Reginald was concerned, Ghost could do anything if he set his mind to it. As soon as Reginald agreed, Olivia lunged at her father and hugged him tightly. Meanwhile, Ricky almost grabbed Michael's feet, but Michael quickly stopped him with a gust of wind. You and Daniel find some associates for you. From tomorrow, the two of you will start cultivating like never before. Elia will give you a training regiment you must follow. Ricky bopped his head up and down. Although Michael could provide Daniel and Ricky with pills and potions, without hard work and a strict training regiment, they wouldn't reach the soul refinement stage in a million years. Since Michael gave Reginald his word, he gave the responsibility of training them to Gaia. After sending the happy love birds away, Michael started to talk about the future of the Majestic. Lord Reginald, we have a unique opportunity in our hands. You know what that is, right? Reginald nodded. Almost 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azair are wiped out, so we have a huge vacuum of alchemists. Don't you think it's time to hike the price up a bit? Asked Gaia. Definitely. Your pills and potions already have a huge demand. In fact, the demand is way higher than the products in our hands. I can get our team to assess the market and get a rough idea of how high we should raise the prices. That's good. But I am also thinking of expanding the Majestic Lord Reginald. Between you and me, I am planning to make Olivia the head of my Majestic chains. What do you think of Olivia getting a share in profits? Reginald became speechless. Even 10% in the profits would settle Olivia for life. In fact, she would surpass Reginald's net worth in a couple of years if Ghost did what he said. As a merchant, he could tell how much of a golden opportunity this was. Visit. For the best known Serengy experience, it'd be wonderful, Master Ghost. I thought so too. Can you do me a favor, Lord Reginald? Of course, Master Ghost. Reginald was too excited as he had already started to imagine Olivia as the head of Ghost's Majestic chain. I need good places to open up branches. Can you get your team to find me some great places and their prices? Consider it done. I'll have the list brought to you in a few days. Reginald already had a few places in mind. Thus, finding Ghost a few suitable places wouldn't be difficult. Besides, Reginald would provide his full help to Ghost to build a Majestic chain so Olivia could have a bright future and become a renowned leader instead of being an alchemy teacher in Aragoth. After everything was said and done, Reginald left Hades, leaving Ghost and Gaia behind. The duo did not linger around in Hades but went straight back to the sect. At the time they returned to the sect, Michael was hit by a heavy bag, and the bad was none other than Nightmare, who shrunk his size like a fully grown German shepherd. Nightmare, buddy. The dragon frantically licked Michael's face and showered him with kisses. It feels like too long. Nightmare hugged both Gaia and Michael in the mid-air. The trio slowly descended onto Claire's mansion and went inside to see Claire. Ghost. Claire welcomed Michael and Gaia with a grin. Take your seats. After they all settled down, Claire handed over 2 parchments to Michael. One is the document for merging the kingdom with the sect, and the other is your graduation confirmation. Since you will be busy getting ready to go to R, I took the liberty to draft them as fast as I could. Gaia took a short glance at the 2 documents before putting them inside her space ring. Also, I sent some disciples to find you 2 a good place to build your home. By the time you come back from R, we'll have a great place. Yes, but don't let anyone start building. I want to design every brick of our castle. Castle? Claire raised her brows in surprise. Of course, it will be a castle. Not just any castle. It will make the existing castles in Elon look like shabby houses. The latest _Saudis are on the website. But don't you think it's overkill to build a castle for just the two of you? Claire turned her gaze to Michael, but he remained silent. It was Gaia's dream to design her own castle, and Michael had no plans to stop her from doing so. No matter how much coins it would cost him, he would let Gaia build them their own castle. Plus, Michael loved the idea of living in a castle without all the responsibilities of a king. Normally I disagree with her, but I love the idea of living in a castle. I have some cool ideas for my room. Nightmare excitedly laughed. Hearing the two of them, Claire could only sigh. There is no stopping you, is there? Nope. Gaia shook her head. Trust me, Claire. You're gonna be mind blown. We just need to find some best architects in R. So, have you thought of how you will get to R? You can't fly there as it would take months. If I were you, I'd look for a portal. Speaking of a portal, do you think the Holy Church would have one? Michael suddenly asked. I think so. The Holy Church has a branch in Royal Land, and I heard they have a portal there, Claire said. That's great. I have to meet His Holiness anyways. Thank you, Claire. Claire wanted to ask why Michael suddenly wanted to meet with His Holiness, but she refrained from sticking her nose into his business. Why don't you stay here and have that girl's night today? He'll go meet His Holiness, Michael said to Gaia as she quickly creased her brows. Why can't I come with you? Because you should spend some time with them? Michael gently squeezed her hand, looking into her eyes. It took Gaia a second to realize his true reason. You know what, that's a great idea. What about me? Asked Nightmare. Visit. For the best known to Serenity experience, I'll take you with me. Michael rubbed Nightmare's head and agreed to bring him to the church. It had been a couple of months since Michael visited Royal Land. By the time he flew to Royal Land atop Nightmare, the sun was on the top, scorching everyone under with its heat. Just like before, Michael had to land at the city gates and pay a toll to enter the city. Nightmare shrunk his size smaller to sit atop Michael's shoulder. After paying 20 gold coins, Michael entered the main capital of Royal Land. As usual, the city looked stripped out of a fantasy anime or a fantasy drama, with all the people wearing fancy clothes and members of other races. Many young girls and young boys had their own exotic pets with them, but none had a dragon. A forest dragon was still a rare dragon breed, after all. Hence, Michael drew some glances at him while walking toward the town square. According to Claire, the road leading to the Holy Church branched out from the town square. Look at all those guards. While Michael was on his way to the town square, Nightmare pointed him to the fully armor-plated soldiers patrolling the streets. The soldiers wore pale blue armor with the crest of Royal Land on their chest. However, several groups adorned dark brown armor instead of blue. Michael did not recognize them. Who are they? The Holy Church soldiers, who were called Holy Guards, would be in shining white armor. At the same time, the Guardians always wore golden armor or appeared without any armor but just their crest. He hadn't seen any group of guards in dark brown armor. Besides, they were extremely strong. Each guard wearing the muddy brown armor was at the core strengthening stage. Because of the helmet, Michael couldn't see their faces or identify their race. Ignoring the patrolling soldiers, Michael continued to walk toward the town square. Is that Ghost? Yes, it's him. Whoa, it's really him. He is better looking than I imagined. He does have a dragon for a pet. Cool. Several nobles who recognized Michi by his trademark black robes began to murmur among them. At this time, almost half of Elon knew Michael's face and the entire continent knew his name. If it wasn't for the no-fly inside the city gates rule, Michael could have easily detected the church and quickly reached the place. But, since it wasn't the case, Michael had to ignore their gazes and walk. Aren't we going to visit King Kramer? Nightmare asked suddenly. Visit? For the best known to Serenity experience, we will. But after we meet with His Holiness, Michael wanted to let everyone in Elon know he had reached the fusion stage. It would definitely bring him attention and respect from throughout the continent. He wouldn't have to pay to enter the city at that time, but the king would come in person to receive him. When he arrived at the buzzing town square, Michael was greeted by a man in white robes standing atop a stack of crates and shouting out loud, "The vampires are walking among us. The Dark Lord is walking among us. The gods are walking among us." The man shouted as loud as he could. Instead of walking past him, Michael leaned on a brick wall and listened to him with a few others. "These are testing times for mortals. We have deceivers leading us into chaos. The guardians are conspiring against humanity. They allowed the vampires to massacre our brothers and sisters. We are not cattle to be slaughtered." Michael was amused by the man's words. Moreover, the man got quite a crowd listening to him. Usually, the people of Royal Land would ignore people like him, but now, they actually stood under the scorching sun to listen to the man. The hate against the Guardians had become stronger than ever. It was evident to Michael. As the sole orchestrator of the events that ruined Guardian Guild's reputation, Michael was proud and pleased. "We have deviated from the Great One and Two. Now we are reaping what we sow. It is time to return to our roots, people. The Holy Church is our only way to redemption." The man looked at the sky, pausing his speech for a few moments. "It's not too late. Surrender your souls to His Holiness, as He is the Savior of the mortal kind." "So the Holy Church is going all out to increase their support, huh?" Michael mumbled inside. Instead of continuing to listen to the man, Michael resumed his journey. Considering the people were too focused on the shouting man, they failed to notice Michael. As Michael walked out of the crowd, he saw a deserted lane flanked by yellow maple trees on each side. The yellow-leaved blanketed the pavement, making the path look like it was paved with gold. The wooden board had the words Holy Church engraved on it, along with an arrow pointing down the path. Michael and Nightmare took the path in silence, listening to the ruffling leaves and chirping of birds. It was soothing to them. Everything was still and silent until Michael sensed a powerful being approaching him. He slowly looked upwards to see a golden-haired man adorned in radiant white armor descending from the sky. If the word knight had an embodiment, it would be the man before Michael. With the heavy armor clanking, the man landed in front of Michael. His golden eyes stared at Michael from top to bottom. A soul-refining stage cultivator, Michael sensed the man's cultivation stage and wondered why a warrior like him appeared here. "Ghost, I presume?" The golden-haired warrior spoke with his steel-like voice. The man's face was void of any friendliness. In fact, he stared at Michael coldly as though Michael had done something to him. The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. One and only. I am hoping to see His Holiness. However, after Michael uttered these words with full of respect, a glint of surprise emerged in the man's gold eyes. "The reason? To get His Holiness' blessings and extend my support to the Holy Church against the vampires. Follow me." The man said nothing but these words before gesturing at Michael to follow him. The both of them took off from the ground, and as soon as Michael flew through the maple tree canopy, he noticed a Gothic-style palace in the distance surrounded by moat and alluring sunflower beds. Michael could see the countless arrays and runes around the palace thanks to his X-ray vision. As Michael flew closer and closer, he noticed the enormous statues of warriors decorated the bridge leading to the palace. This castle had clearly stood the test of time, and despite his age, the palace looked sturdy and pristine. "This way." The man descended to the ground, landing on the marble floor facing the giant golden door. As though the door had sensed them, it creaked open slowly to reveal the interior. When the door opened, Michael was welcomed by massive braziers hanging from each of the 6 travertine columns that lit up the lower levels of the throne hall and blanketed everything in a warm glow. The countless gems on the rounded ceiling danced in the flickering light while statuettes and memorials looked down upon this opulent hall's marble floor. Broad, stained glass windows depicting ancient legends were concealed by veils colored the same ebony as the banners. The curtains have been adorned with jewels and fine patterns. An ebony rug split the entire hall in half, matching the thinner ones on either side of the hall, while burgee banners with golden fringes decorated the walls. Between each banner stood several tapers of various sizes. All but a few have been lit, illuminating the 2 giant statues of a man and a woman. Under these two statues were two striking thrones of iron sitting at the center of a small platform and adjoined by 5 similar, but smaller seats for visiting dignitaries. The thrones were covered in Byzantine carvings, and a lavish lantern was fixed on each of the slim ears. The comfortable pillows were radiant white ebony, and these too have been adorned with embellished quilting. Those seeking the wisdom of the holiness could do so on the plethora of extravagant and comfortable maple benches facing the center of the hall. Those of higher standing could instead take seats in the elegant balustrades overlooking the hall. Entering the hall, Michael noticed a few nobles praying to the 2 giant statues on their knees. Instead of following the man, Michael went to his knees and closed his eyes just like the nobles. The sudden gesture Michael surprised the man yet again. While pretending to pray to the giant statues, Michael scanned the hall. Suddenly, he sensed a body-refining stage cultivator entering the hall surrounded by soul-refining stage warriors. Michael slowly opened his eyes to see a man in his late 70s with pure white hair standing before the throne. The old man wore radiant white robes that sparkled in the light as he looked to be the embodiment of kindness. There was no doubt in Michael's mind. The old man was the holiness of the Holy Church in the royal land. May the Great One and Two be with you always. His Holiness raised the golden staff in his hand as a warm wave of energy brushed past Michael. His Holiness will now see you, the golden-haired man said to Michael. Michael stood up and slowly approached the older man on the throne with a nod. Please take the seat, child. The old man gestured at Michael to sit in the chair beside the throne. Your Holiness, please give us your blessing. Michael and Nightmare lowered their heads. May the Great One and Two be with you always. His Holiness blessed Michael and Nightmare with a gentle smile. The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. It's a pleasure to see a gifted young man like you bow your heads towards the Holy Church. His Holiness softly spoke. I may not be a model citizen, Your Holiness, but I always put my faith in the Great One and Two. They guide me, and after the recent events, my faith is stronger than ever before. Nightmare was truly surprised by the extent of Michael's acting skills. He had to learn about the Great One and Two from Gaia, yet he talked like a die-hard worshipper of the two gods. The Great One and Two protect those who keep them in their hearts, child. Nothing can harm you as long as you have them in your heart. Now feel free to speak your mind, child. This is a safe zone. I want to support the Holy Church, Your Holiness. I don't trust the Guardians, and I firmly believe only the Holy Church can put a stop to all this madness. His Holiness just gently smiled hearing Michael's words. It is not madness but consequences of our sins, my child. We have lost our ways. Temporary pleasures and false gods have blinded everyone's faith. That's why I want to do my part, offering what I can to the Holy Church, Your Holiness. Your true faith is what we need, child. But we are living in difficult times, facing evil every day. To fight those evil and keep the light burning bright, we need everyone's help. Brianna. His Holiness closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened his eyes, a bald woman slowly descended before them. Your Holiness. The bald woman kindly smiled and bowed towards His Holiness. Believer Brianna is responsible for handling donations. You can make your donation no matter the amount to her. Michael nodded and took out a space ring from the system storage. Then, he handed over the space ring to Brianna. May the Great One and Two bless your kind heart. Brianna kindly smiled, taking the space ring from Michael. But soon, a glint of surprise emerged in her eyes. I also want to offer a batch of healing potions to the Holy Church every month. Believer Brianna. But unfortunately, I can't make the donations in person. So is it okay if someone else made the donation on my behalf? Brianna was still in shock because no one in Elon had ever donated 5 million gold coins in one go. Even some noble families would give less to the Holy Church, yet a youngster like him made a donation of 5 million really touched her heart. Of course, you are a true believer, my child. Only if we had more believers like you. Nightmare almost coughed up blood. Although Nightmare had no idea why he was making donations to the Holy Church, one thing was for sure, Ghost was the last guy who would believe in the Holy Church. The latest _AP_SODIes are on Website. Just as Michael planned, after making such huge donations, the Royal News printed his meeting with His Holiness on the front page. The entire continent now knew about Ghost's friendly relationship with the Holy Church, which became another ally of Ghost. Since he made a 5 million donation and offered to send Holy Guards a batch of healing potions free every month, His Holiness gladly gave access to the teleportation portal. Instead of walking into the portal right away, Michael went to meet King Kramer. He would have walked to the castle if he hadn't reached the fusion stage. Since he was, Michel flew to the castle and landed right before the castle gates. As soon as his feet touched the ground, several armed guards rushed to the gates, thinking they were under attack. Relax, I am here to meet King Kramer. The soldiers did not loosen their bodies. Tell your king Ghost wants to see him. Ghost? The soldiers were startled. Although they hadn't seen him in person, they had all heard about him. I thought a fusion stage cultivator would receive a different welcome. Michael informed the soldiers about his cultivation stage in an indirect manner. It took the soldiers a few moments to realize the graveness of the matter. But before one of them could run back into the castle, a group of fancily dressed people approached the gates surrounded by several more armed soldiers. The one who led the group was a middle-aged man with wavy shoulder-length silvery hair. He was neither too short nor too tall but rather had an average build. His thick mustache perfectly complemented his clean-shaven rosy skin. Just by looking at the silver robes and the golden crown on his face, Michael could tell who this man was. King Kramer. Michael greeted the king with a smile. Sorry to drop by unannounced. I was in the neighborhood and it'd be rude if I didn't come to meet you, King Ghost. Unexpectedly, it was the silvery-haired woman who greeted Michael instead of the king. To a man who saw countless heaven-defying beauties from both this universe and other universes, Michael wasn't startled by the queen's charm. Queen Amat, I presume. The guards quickly opened the steel gate between the two parties as Michael stepped forward. Sorry for all this, King Ghost. Oh, please call me Ghost. I insist. The latest _sodies are on the website. As you wish. King Kramer finally opened his mouth and extended his arm to shake Michael's. Honor to finally meet you, King Kramer. Michael firmly shook his hand. Please come inside. The queen welcomed Michael with a bright grin on her face. You must be the only king who doesn't like to be called king and surrounded by royal guards. The queen melodiously laughed while leading Michael to the majestic castle. What's the point of being a fusion stage cultivator when I have to surround myself with weaker guards? In fact, I have the same proposal to the king of Drattle and Kethin too. Really? Queen Amat's voice trailed off as she looked to be in deep thought about Michael's offer. Of course, Michael knew they would accept it, but they had to pretend to be thinking so they wouldn't look like power-hungry wolves. Regardless of their status as king and queen, they would still be wanting to be a part of something big as majestic. Why? Because Ghost was a fusion stage cultivator, and being an ally to a fusion stage cultivator came with countless benefits. From Michael's perspective, he needed allies. By making them King Kramer and Queen Amat shareholders in the Majestic, they would not only become his allies, but the Majestic would get the protection of the entire kingdom. Once the king and queen taste the benefits, Michael could reap more from the two of them. I mean, just think about it. An outsider comes to your home and runs things without giving you any sort of tribute. It's not fair, right? That's why I want the two of you to be a part of Majestic in Royal Land. Visit. For the best-known surrounding experience while they were talking, the old man who went to bring the mirror finally arrived at the hall with several other nobles. They all had one thing in common: curiosity. The last time Michael saw the device was when he competed in the Elon tournament. Of course, the mirror before him looked a little smaller and lightweight. It was apparent to Michael that the Guardians had made some modifications to the device. One single shout from the dormant Hydra, and they still hadn't recovered their ability to perceive someone else's cultivation level. Let's do this, shall we? Michael rubbed his palms together excitedly before walking toward the mirror. We made some changes to the contraption, Master Ghost. This one is specifically designed to check whether someone is at the fusion stage or not. I hope you don't mind it. Why would I? Michael just shrugged, placing his palm on the mirror. As soon as his palm touched the mirror, he felt a suction force and a warm sensation throughout his body. The mirror remained unmoving for a second before slowly starting to radiate a bright purple light from within. Fusion stage. The old man mumbled under his breath. How am I doing? Michael winked at the nobles as they stared at Michael in pure amazement. Michael was sure they would spread the news of his cultivation stage throughout the continent by tomorrow morning. We should agree, don't you think? Queen Amat whispered to King Kramer. It's always better to have allies. King Kramer nodded, agreeing with Queen Amat's words. Now that Michael had finished proving himself, he returned to his seat. Well, King Kramer and Queen Amat. Michael looked at them for their answer. We will definitely consider it Ghost. There are some rules and regulations for us to own something. What about we give us your answer, just say, tomorrow night? Queen Amat asked, just as Michael predicted. Cool. The latest underscores are on the website. At the moment, Michael was in his Dark Lord form in the Dark Forest. Azazel was cleaning the room while Nightmare and Vidora played with each other on the bed. My lord. As Michael was correcting his robes before the mirror, Eladir entered the room. I am ready, Eladir said. Let's go then. Nightmare stopped flicking Iag on the head and leaped to land on Michael's shoulder. You're not coming, buddy, Michael said to Nightmare as he nodded. I know. Where is Gaia, though? What's taking her so long to kill one puny human? Iag sounded lazy and tired of playing with Nightmare for so long. However, what Michael said next excited her. She will join us later at the Pirate Haven Aden. Buddy? Michael looked at Nightmare. Return to Royal Land and stay in the room. If anyone asks for me, contact me. Michael had to stay in the Royal Land Castle due to King Kramer and Queen Amat's hospitality. They were quite insistent for him to stay the night. Since Michael did not have any more business to conduct in Royal Land, he agreed to stay the night. As far as they were concerned, Michael was cultivating in his room. Nightmare nodded before vanishing into thin air. After Nightmare teleported to King Kramer's castle, Vidora landed on Michael's shoulder with a single leap. Surprisingly, a rune glowed on their body, and in a few seconds, they too vanished. But they didn't teleport like Nightmare. Instead, they just vanished from the naked eye thanks to Eladir's little rune. The cloaking rune would have been perfect for Ghost. However, according to Eladir, anyone above the body strengthening stage could see through the rune. Hence, there was no point in using the rune in the cultivation continent, and Michael had no need to use the rune in the southern continent. He did ask Eladir about placing the rune on his army, only to learn that the rune requires a high amount of arch energy. 50 arch energy crystals to hide oneself for 5 minutes wasn't a very eye-catching deal to Michael. Azazel, you go to the crypt and use the undead to clean the place. Dalar and Jonah also need a new working place, so see what you can do. Visit. For the best known Serengi experience. As you wish, my lord. Following Nightmare, Azazel disappeared from the room. Finally, Michael and Eladir were teleported to Caius' mansion by the system, and when they appeared in the room, Maxine and Corey greeted Michael with a deep bow. My lord? My lord? Michael flicked his wrist as the throne materialized behind the oak table. He plunged onto the throne as Eladir took a long look at both Maxine and Corey for a few moments. Maxine, Corey, meet Eladir, Lord Eladir. Eladir just nodded. Maxine, is it ready? Asked Michael. Yes, my lord. It's on the Big Bertha. Michael then turned his gaze towards Corey. So they haven't taken our offer? No, my lord. To be honest, I didn't expect them to be this stupid. A true pirate would have seen the opportunity. These are just mindless drunkards. I am glad you've seen the truth, Corey. Pirating is a fragile and dangerous business. If you don't change your ways, eventually you'd go extinct. It's time we root out these weeds and unite the pirates under one banner. My banner. It'd be an honor for the pirates to serve you, my lord. Maxine felt proud and excited to unite all the pirates under the Dark Lord instead of the pirate lords. As a pirate herself, she knew the dangers of being a pirate. It was only a matter of time before the kingdoms unite against the pirates and strike them down. Especially, the Empress of Ar was keen to wipe out the pirates from not only the waters of Ar but also from the southern continent. The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. However, once the Dark Lord unites the pirates and brands them as something else, the Empress might not go all out in a war against them. Go wait for me on the ship. Michael dismissed the two ladies and turned his gaze towards Eladir. You have something to ask? I don't quite clearly see your play here, my lord. First, you went to ally yourself with the Holy Church and now openly waging war against the pirates. Michael smiled. Who is hunting the Dark Lord along with the Guardians? The Holy Church. Ghost is now a friend of the Holy Church. Other than the obvious benefits such as being an ally to a growing superpower, now I hold the key to the Holy Church's destruction. Eladir looked more confused than before. I can only keep Ghost and the Dark Lord separate for a time, Eladir. Eventually, someone would always figure it out, someone smarter than I am. So when they figure it out, the Holy Church would be the last organization to come out full swinging. Because they would be crucified along with Ghost. By getting donations and being allies to Ghost, the Holy Church has become an ally to the Dark Lord. How could they go against Ghost's allies when they themselves are one? Eladir finally learned Ghost's reasoning behind his visit to the Holy Church. Now that the Holy Church received donations from Ghost, the Holy Church wouldn't be able to wage a war against Ghost because they would be busy fighting the Public and the Guardian Guild. What about your other allies? Asked Eladir. I have plans for them. But before someone figure out my identity, I better be strong and have an army strong enough to fight off our foes. We have to, my lord. I have seen what Skyhall could do. They would go to any length to stop you. They are the real evil in the form of good. Don't fret it, Eladir. They couldn't stop me when I wasn't even born. Now I am here and I have a score to settle. Michael willed the system as the skull mask covered his face. Just like a breezing wind, the two of them disappeared from the room. At that time, Gibson was preparing everything for Big Bertha's journey towards the pirate haven Aden. Since Maxine announced to the crew that the Dark Lord would arrive to meet them, the crew was extra motivated and didn't dare to slack off. Unlike the Silent Reaper, the Big Bertha was in pristine condition. No one would believe the ship was manned by the pirates or one would recognize the crew as pirates. Instead, the crew looked like disciplined soldiers wearing black leather armor and carrying new cutlasses. Visit. For a better user experience, of course, they still possessed habits such as getting as drunk as possible and eating without any restrictions. Maxine and Corey were still in the process of turning the pirates into soldiers, and Big Bertha's crew were the front runners to become disciplined warriors of the Dark Lord. Bring it out! Gibson climbed out of the lower decks and shouted at the crew before throwing a roll of ropes down the hole. Pull with all your strength. That thing is heavy. Maxine stood at the other end of the rope along with a group of pirates. The rope was attached to a pulley to make lifting the mortar a bit easier. You can lift it now. Gibson and Maxine heard Shorty shouting from the below decks. 1, 2, 3. Maxine counted until 3 to pull down the rope using every bit of her strength. While Maxine was pulling down the rope, Corey remained at the helm, waiting for the Dark Lord. Even without the so-called new weaponry, the Big Bertha was a beast. The upper deck alone had 10 cannons on each side. In addition, they fitted the Big Bertha with 3 rows of cannons, each with 15 broadside cannons. One side of Big Bertha totally had 40 cannons, making the total count of cannons a whopping 80 cannons. Usually, that number of cannons would slow down the ship, but the Dark Lord ordered them to do so despite the drawbacks. When Corey did a test run with Big Bertha, it took them almost 5 minutes to reload all the cannons. Unless they fixed the reload speed somehow, a talented ship captain could do a lot of damage to Big Bertha within 5 long minutes. As Corey was weighing the pros and cons of the Big Bertha, the Dark Lord finally appeared beside her, almost sending shivers down her spine. My lord, our Dark Lord is at the helm. Gibson shouted as loud as he could when he saw Michael. Fortunately, the mortar was in place, or they would have saluted at Michael and dropped it down the hole. As Michael climbed down the steps from the helm, the crew bowed their heads towards Michael and Eladir. Corey followed the two of them behind to the mortar, where Michael saw the mortar forged with sturdy black metal and engraved with intricate patterns resembling a coiling dragon. The pirates were so curious to see what this thing could do. Under their curious gazes, Elodie squatted beside the mortar and drew a few symbols on its surface as well as inside the mortar through the firing hole. Although it looked as simple as drawing a few symbols, Michael knew the intricacy behind each rune. Among all the specializations in the world, rune mastery was the most difficult to master. According to Elodie, they had only explored 10% of the entire rune mastery. Michael hoped to bring out the fullest potential of rune mastery with the help of the system. Everyone, including Michael, waited for Elodie to finish. When he finally took his hand off the mortar, several runes brightly radiated crimson-red light. Visit. For a better user experience, it's ready. Elodie wouldn't usually show any emotions on his face. Still, even he couldn't help proudly grinning after finishing one of his finest works to date. Gibson set a course to Aden. When the sun rises tomorrow, there will only be one pirate lord. With Corey's fleet following behind, the Big Bertha began her journey towards Aden. Michael remained at the helm looking at the night sky and enjoying the momentary peace. "You are in deep thinking, my lord." Maxine came to Michael's side and joined Gibson, Corey, and Elodie. "Have you notified Vance and Blackmane?" Maxine nodded. Instead of catching the pirates off guard, Michael ordered Maxine to notify Vance and Blackmane about the attack. He wanted the pirates to prepare for the war and use their full might. Only then could Michael destroy them and crush the pirates' morale once and for all. "Vance and Blackmane will be waiting for us with all their fleet, my lord." "Good." Michael remained calm despite the fact that he was about to face hundreds of ships in an all-out war. "Are we really going to destroy them all?" Maxine really doubted Michael would destroy the pirates as he always tried to recruit them. However, by not joining Michael, Pirate Lord Vance and Pirate Lord Blackmane left him with no choice. Some of them, yeah. Can't have a war without casualties, can we? My lord, what about their fleet? The fewer ships we destroy, the more ships to our fleet. Corey added her thoughts which aligned with everyone. Except for Elodie, who didn't give a damn about the pirate lords, the others wanted the Dark Lord to spare the majority of the ships. At this point, none dared to doubt the Dark Lord. The two pirate lords may have superior numbers, but the Dark Lord could destroy them with a few spells. How should I end the war? Should I kill the two pirate lords in front of their fleet or destroy their fleet in front of them? If you're asking me, I'd say kill the two of them and end it quickly. Elodie shrugged. I agree with Lord Elodie, my lord, Gibson said. Yes, my lord. Killing the two pirate lords would end the war quickly. Most of the pirates would immediately surrender. However, some of the fanatics might choose to fight until death path. We can destroy them to make a statement, Corey exclaimed. They all shared the same thought. Hence, Michael decided to listen to them because what they said was correct. He should capture the ships and strengthen his fleet rather than destroy the ships. It would take years to rebuild those ships. According to Corey, once he conquered their fleet, he might have almost 500 ships in his fleet. You focus on destroying the fanatics. I will deal with Vance and Blackmane. It's a pity they chose false freedom over the opportunity to be something great. Some people are born to live a simple life, I guess. Under the full moon, Michael and his fleet sailed towards Aden. The Big Bertha moved in front of 120 ships, including several frigates and man-of-wars. Such a massive force would terrify any foe. But, while they were sailing forward, Michael noticed a few ships in the distance, following them. Those are Royal Navy, Gibson, who looked at the ships through the spyglass, exclaimed in shock. The latest _AP_SODIs are on website. What are they doing in this water? Watching us. They want to see the battle. If I am right, someone very close to the Empress herself is in one of those ships. Should we attack them, my lord? Maxine asked. No, let them watch. They are not a threat to us. Meanwhile, in Aden, Vance was looking at the ocean through the window while taking long, deep sips of rum. Several pirate captains in his fleet accompanied him in the room. Some of them looked worried, but some looked outright excited. "How long till they reach our waters?" asked Vance. Melina, the red-haired pirate who Corey met, answered, "For hours top. We will show them who rules this part of the sea, pirate lord." One of the pirate captains exclaimed, "Still have no news about Blackmane, huh?" Ignoring the pirate captain, Vance questioned Melina. "No, but we have his fleet. So even if he doesn't show up, we can still beat Pirate Lord Corey and her fleet." Vance took another long sip and threw the empty mug away. "What about the magic-wielding captain? Lucifer. Is he coming too?" As soon as they heard the name Lucifer, the pirate captains who were afraid became more terrified. According to Maxina's note, yes, he is coming. I want to show him the true power of the pirates. I want to show him why those freaks never dared to set foot on our seas. Vance growled, and looking at his fearless tone, some of the pirate captains, including Melina, became courageous. "No negotiation. The moment they come into our range, fire at will," Vance ordered. "Everything is ready, Vance." Melina approached Vance. "Well, take care of them. After today, there'll be only one true pirate lord," she seductively whispered into his ears. "Visit. For the best known experience, Blackmane, you bastard? Where the fuck are you?" Vance looked at the hundreds of ships lining around the island, forming a defense line. Although the fleet included Blackmane's forces, Vance still missed the guidance and leadership of Blackmane. "I also took the liberty to initiate the backstabbing." Vance. Melina licked her lips, and Vance, he just grinned. After everything was said and done, Vance came to his ship, a brigade built for speed rather than battle. Vance named his ship the Sailing Wind. The name suited the ship perfectly because it was one of the fastest ships on the southern continent. Vance used the ship for plundering hundreds of merchant ships transporting rum. Sailing Wind speed always enabled Vance to hit and run until the opponent's ship was in no condition to fight. Vance even brought down a man-of-war with his ship. Now, he waited for Big Bertha to appear in his sight along with hundreds of ships behind him. "Look!" the pirate who stood atop the crow's nest shouted as Vance looked at the horizon through the spyglass. "They are here." Vance could see the giant frigate sailing towards them, leading the fleet of Corey. All those ships flew a pure black flag instead of Corey's flags. Like storm clouds, the black ships approached Aden at the horizon. "Get ready, pirates!" Vance shouted as the sound of cannons creaking resonated throughout the area. Additionally, a loud bell rang in Aden, indicating the approaching danger. "As soon as they enter our range, fire with all you have," Vance shouted again. Even in the face of war, he didn't neglect to bring a barrel of rum and chug a full mug down his throat. Every cannon in the ship and Aden aimed at the horizon and prepared to fire at will as soon as they enter their range. However, all the ships, including the Big Bertha, stopped a few meters away from their firing range. "Why are they stopping?" Melina asked. "Probably to negotiate. What if they don't sail towards us? We will go to them and sink them where they stand." Vance raised his mug, riling up his crew. They all let out a thunderous battle cry and prepared to move forward. But suddenly, they saw a bright red light shooting out of Big Bertha. What the hell? Vance and his ship turned red like someone aiming a red spotlight at them. Boom! While they were in confusion, a thunderous booming sound echoed through the calm sea. Vance looked up at the sky to see countless stars falling down upon them. Vance and his ship didn't even realize what just hit them until they exploded into bits and pieces. "Oh my God! Pirate Lord! Vance! Shit! The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. Dark magic." The pirates were in utter confusion. Moreover, they were terrified. After destroying Vance's Sailing Wind, the red spotlight fell on a couple of more ships, and the result was the same. Boom! 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 At this time, the pirates did not wait for Corey's fleet to enter their firing range, but began to fire the cannons aimlessly at Big Bertha. As the pirates were raining down cannonballs, a dark cloud slowly flew towards Aden. "Surrender!" The demonic voice swept across the sea, terrifying the pirates. Gradually, the dark cloud faded away, revealing the Dark Lord to the pirates. "Fire!" However, A daring pirate captain decided to fire at Michael. But before he could take aim, the red spotlight fell on the ship. Boom! The result was the same as the ship exploded into smithereens. The mortar was more powerful than Michael expected. Michael did not stop. Instead, he pointed at Aiden, signaling Maxine to aim the mortar fire at Aiden. He wanted to destroy the walls and the island partially to make a statement. Under the pirates' shocked gazes, countless meteors landed on Aiden, destroying the walls and everything in the explosion's vicinity. "Oh my God!" Gibson shuddered in fear, looking at all the death and destruction. Instead of stopping with Aiden's walls and a couple of ships, Michael continued to point at ships as Maxine fired the mortar, destroying several ships in under a few minutes. Everywhere Corey turned her gaze, there was nothing but explosions. Vance did not even stand a chance. She thought Michael would fly to Vance, grab him by his neck and kill him in front of the pirates. Yet what happened was the exact opposite. He did not even lift a finger at Vance. "If you want to join your friends, fire." Michael's voice amplified to the point it sounded like a thunderclap. The pirates shivered to hear his demonic voice. Even the most fearless pirate captains shuddered and hesitated to order their crew to fire at him. Meanwhile, Big Bertha and Corey's fleet slowly started to sail towards Aden that was burning like a bonfire. Everything was going according to plan until some of the ships in Corey's fleet began to fire at Big Bertha and the others. Michael quickly turned his gaze towards his fleet to see some ships firing at their allies. Visit. For a better user experience, backup plan, huh? Regardless of the sudden betrayal, Michael did not even raise a brow. Instead, he just flew toward Big Bertha to deal with the traitors in a most brutal way. Unlike Michael, the others on the Big Bertha were completely caught off guard. "Traitors!" Shorty leaped onto the railing and shouted viciously. "We can't fire at them without damaging them." Gibson pointed at the friendly ship stuck between the Big Bertha and traitors. Corey shivered from top to bottom, fearing what the Dark Lord would do to her because of her crew's betrayal. "I should have seen it," Corey mumbled. Whoosh! But all of a sudden, a dark emerald green mist enveloped the ships of the traitors. One by one, all the traitor ships got covered in thick green mist. Boom! 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 Suddenly, all the ships enveloped in green mist exploded except one frigate. When the dust and smoke settled down, Gibson and the others saw the Dark Queen hovering above them. Gaia flew towards the last ship of the traitors and saw a few dead bodies on the upper deck. It was apparent to Gaia that the traitors killed those loyal to Corey. Seeing the others explode to death, the rest of them were terrified. Every single one shivered from head to toe and looked as pale as a white sheet. "You're traitorous maggots!" Gaia's shout shook the frigate and sent shivers down their spines. Michael smiled behind his mask, looking at Gaia in action. Under their gazes, Gaia waved her hand as the poisonous green mist coiled around each individual on the ship. Taking the traitors with her, she flew towards Vance's fleet. Since there was momentary confusion among Corey's fleet, Vance's pirate captains tried to attack them. But Gaia destroyed the traitors faster than Vance's fleet could fire at them. The traitors frantically squirmed against the poisonous mist around them to escape. They used all their strength but to no avail. "I would have hated to miss this action," Gaia said, without bothering to hide her killing intent. "Visit. For the best-known Serenity experience, let me show them what would happen when someone betrays us." Gaia flicked her wrist as all the 20 traitors lined up in front of them in the sky. At that moment, all the eyes were on the traitors. Her cold gaze swept across the traitors as she raised her hand and clenched her fist. As soon as she closed her fist, a sliver of green mist slowly rose upwards and entered their nostrils. Michael wasn't interested in anything else other than watching the traitors violently twitch and puke dark red blood through every pore in their bodies. Not a single sound could be heard except their traits, screaming and wailing for help. It was a long, slow, painful death. But, compared to their deaths, Vance and the others were gifted. At least, they died instantly instead of suffering Gaia's poison that corroded their organs from within. After a few minutes, the traitors turned into a bloody puddle and oozed down into the ocean. Now who wants to fight? Michael's thunderous demonic voice echoed through the silent ocean. None of them dared to raise a finger at the Dark Lord this time. Instead, the pirates dropped their swords and stared at Corey's fleet, slowly sailing towards Aden. Michael and Gaia floated in the sky until all of Corey's fleet surrounded the island. Afterward, Corey's men rushed into Aden, facing no resistance from the pirates. At that moment, the pirates thought about nothing else except what was going to happen to them. They had no one to lead or give them guidance. Once Corey's men captured all the defense cannons in Aden, Michael descended towards Vances Castle. The residents of Aden, mostly young women, and elderly pirates stared at Michael in utter shock. They couldn't believe seeing someone flying and using spells. Some even dropped to their knees and began to worship, mistaking Michael and Gaia for gods. Ignoring them, Michael entered Vances' room through the window and waited for his subordinates to arrive. Bang! Michael raised his hand, blasting away Vances' chair with a gust of wind. Then he brought the skull and bones thrones with a flick of his wrist. But before he plunged into his throne, he looked at the dark corner of the room. You can come out now. Gaia sat on her throne, resting her one leg atop one before Michael, and waited for the united guest to reveal himself. After hearing Michael's words, a tall man walked out of the shadows, slow clapping. The man had a long bushy beard braided like Vikings and outlined his eyes with dark mascara. He walked out of the shadows using a cane to support his limping. Although the man looked vicious and had an aura of a pirate, he dressed like a higher army official. He was dressed in white and had medals and ribbons attached to his chest, while several strips of colors were engraved on both of his broad shoulders. Except for the long white coat and a white feather hat, the man looked similar to a Navy officer on Earth. Michael just sat on his throne and waited for the man to introduce himself, although Michael had already guessed the man's identity. Lucifer, aka the Dark Lord. The man used his cane to raise the chair from the ground before sitting on it. Pirate Lord Blackmane. The pirates still believe you are on a voyage, Michael calmly said in his demonic voice. What Michael said was the truth. The man before them was none other than the most powerful pirate lord of the three, Gibbs Blackmane Jet. Visit. For a better user experience, pirates are an endangering species, Lucifer. We both know that. Gaia remained silent despite the fact she didn't like how he addressed Michael by his name. I don't blame you for joining the Empress. I have no problem with that as long as your Royal Navy don't raise their flags against my army. On the contrary, Lucifer, I am here to broker peace between the Royal Navy and the pirates. Her Highness believes the new leadership might take the pirates in another direction than the predecessors. Blackmane had a wise tone to his voice. Michael liked how calm Blackmane was despite the obvious fact Michael could kill him with a single snap of his finger. Interesting. I am sure there are conditions, right? Asked Gaia. Simple. The Royal Navy will leave the southern continent waters in exchange for a peace treaty. You don't plunder our merchants and we won't attack you, but you don't conduct business in someone's home without paying them tribute. Do you? 20%. The merchants will pay 20% of whatever they are bringing into your waters. It's a nice deal, Gaia whispered into Michael's ears. But Michael had a feeling there was something else in Blackmane's list of things he wanted from them. What else? Michael didn't beat around the bush or accept the deal right away. There is an island not too far from Aden. It belonged to Her Highness' father. He bought the island from a pirate named Isaiah. This is the document proving the claim. Blackmane slowly put his hand into his coat pocket and retrieved a golden parchment. He threw the parchment towards Michi as Gaia caught it in midair and opened it to read the contents. Her Highness would appreciate it if the island is returned to her. For a few minutes, Michael did not respond to Blackmane. I will give the island back to her on one condition. No military bases in my territory. Blackmane's eyes showed a glint of reluctance. His moments of silence indicated to Michael that they were planning to use the island as a military base. But now that Michael said no to that, Blackmane had no choice but to agree or let go of the island. Understandable. No military bases. We have no more conditions. We would appreciate it if we sign a contract with all our conditions and terms. You want a signed contract from the Dark Lord? Ha 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 ha, Michael burst into devilish laughter as the room grew darker and darker. Visit. For the best experience regardless of the phenomenon that could terrify many men, Blackmane remained calm and composed. Sure thing. Tell your Empress the pirates are no more. It's the Dark Army from now on. And they will not bother her merchant ships? Wonderful. Finally Blackmane grinned. I will bring the contract tomorrow. Blackmane nodded, standing up from the chair. Michael wondered how he was going to leave the room only to be stunned by Blackmane when he just vanished into thin air. Did he just teleport? Gaia creased her brows. Seems like the Empress is an interesting person, Michael said to Gaia. Leaving the room teleporting was a statement. The Empress wanted Michael to know that they also had ways to use arch-energy inside the void line. Since Michael anticipated it from the most powerful continent in the world, Blackmane's little teleportation trick didn't surprise him. My lord. Eventually, Corey and Maxine entered the room after putting out the fire and capturing all the pirates who tried to escape Aiden. It's done, my lord. We removed all the masts and put them in the dungeon beneath the castle. They can't move anywhere unless they want to go swimming, Maxine said with an amused tone. I am sure Vance has a hoard of rum somewhere here. Distribute it among the men. Make sure they have a good time. But no plundering of women, Gaia added coldly. As you wish, my lord. What about the pirates, my lord? Corey asked, looking at the hundreds of ships outside through the window behind Michael. Give them a choice between joining us or leaving Aiden. From now on, there will be no more pirates and piracy. We are going legit. Gaia simply ordered Maxine and Corey. Getting 20% of the merchants without plundering was a great deal. When the word about their deal gets out, more and more merchants will venture into the southern continent. As a result, not only would they get free stuff, but the economy of Gisel and the kingdoms under Michael's control would also drastically improve. To stay in control and power, they needed a steady revenue stream such as this. And you two should take a break too. You deserve it, Michael said as Corey and Maxine nodded because they were tired and needed a break. Ghosty, it's time you return here. The king and queen are asking for you. After Corey and Maxine left the room, Michael heard Nightmare calling him. Let's go back to Royal Land. Visit. For the best no_vel_ng experience. By the time Michael returned to the castle, King Kramer and Queen Amat were waiting for him with a red-haired young man. He adorned matching fiery red robes and had a deviant look to him. Ghost. Meet Moriet, King Kramer's long-distant cousin. Queen Amat emphasized the word distant to Michael. By the look on her face, Michael could see the tension between the two. Several miles distant, Moriet exclaimed with a mocking smile. Pleasure to meet you, Moriet. Michael firmly shook the young man's hands with a smile. The pleasure is all mine. Let's sit, shall we? They all plugged themselves onto the white sofa as the maids brought down several beverages, including orange juice for Michael. It's so amazing to see such a young fusion stage cultivator. I thought all fusion stage cultivators are old. Moriet laughed. People say hardwood never fails, but it's not true always. I mean, no matter how hard you cultivate, if you don't have luck, resources, and talent, you can't climb higher stages. Michael took a little sip of his orange juice and told Moriet. That's true, Moriet nodded. But it doesn't matter. If you can't get to the higher stages, enjoy what you have. Yeah, right? Believe me or not, I live by those words. Look at me, I can't get past the body strengthening stage. I tried so many potions and stuff, but I simply lack the talent. So now I'm focused more on enjoying the mortal pleasures instead of sitting in a room, cultivating. Michael noticed Queen Amat rolling her eyes, thinking no one had noticed her. End of the day, enjoying the life all it matters. Michael pretended to agree with Moriet. I am so glad to see someone who's powerful as you agree with my views. Now please tell me what kind of property you're looking for in Royal Land. I have several in the capital and I'd be happy to give one of it to you. I heard you wanted to offer a share? Michael nodded. The latest _AP_SODIes are on _ website. That works great for me too. Now that I remember, one of your people came to me asking to buy one of my buildings and the capital. Pardon me for not agreeing then, Moriat apologized. He was a pervert who wanted to bed Raylene, but he was not a fool to think about her anymore. As Moriat said, he valued his life, and touching a fusion stage cultivator's women would be like jumping into the fire. Therefore, Moriat erased the thought of touching Raylene. It's okay. Is it still available? I'd appreciate it if I can use that building to open up another branch of Hades in Royal Land. Consider the building is yours. I'll send one of my men to you with the deed. Wonderful, Michael grinned. What about we celebrate it over a nice boat party? Michael sighed after hearing Moriat. It's not that Michael was truly disappointed, but he pretended to be upset. As a fusion stage cultivator, Michel could kill Moriat without much worry. One big donation and the entire Holy Church began to believe Michael was a true worshipper of their gods. To be honest, Michael was the last one who would believe in the Great One and Two. He was using these idiots, but they had no idea. So instead, they believed Ghost to be a true believer. The exit portal is located in Ysirius in Kingdom Thera. Wonderful. Michael was glad that the exit portal was on Ysirius, Eve's home city. Otherwise, he would have had to fly from one city to Ysirius. He preferred to meet Eve first before starting to explore R. Have a wonderful journey, Believer Ghost, Believer Elia, and Believer Nightmare. Maxwell took time to bow towards each of them as they returned the gesture by bowing toward Maxwell. The latest _AP_SODIs are on website. May the Great One and Two be with you and guide you on your journey. Maxwell raised his palm, blessing the trio. Afterward, the trio approached the portal. The closer they got to the portal, the stronger they felt the pull. We will meet again soon, Believer Maxwell, Michael said, looking over his shoulder before finally walking into the portal. After coming to this world, it took Michael almost 2 years to find time to visit R. However, thanks to his runic teleportation skill, he could go back and forth once he left a rune somewhere on R. Thera was a modest kingdom bordered by a calm sea to the north, rich forests to the south, a wide river to the east, and a large mountain to the west. Citizens of Kingdom Thera mainly lived off weaponsmithing, wine brewing, and blacksmithing. The kingdom's landscape was stunning. Green, open fields, astonishing aquatic wildlife, and dramatic rock formations were just a sliver of the charm Thera has to offer, which was why the country was beloved among foreigners. The people of Thera were welcoming towards foreigners and tend to welcome them with friendliness. This was because they felt foreigners could fortify the kingdom's well-being. The city of Ysirius was built at the base of a modest mountain and was truly an ever-growing wonder. Its beauty was matched by the backdrop of ever-clear skies and the snowy mountain. The climate these skies brought was of great importance and also influenced the architectural designs, as the vast majority of buildings were designed to take full advantage of the climate, as more daring elements could be created when you don't have to worry about strong winds. The skyline was riddled with towering tall buildings, and many seemed to have evolved throughout the ages. The culture was rising in Ysirius and had attracted a lot of attention. Many new cultures had left their mark not just on trade and relations, but also on the city's identity. What historically was a city of elves has grown into a multicultural hub where humans, beast men, and elves coexist peacefully. At that time, inside a brightly lit hall, Michael walked out of the portal along with Gaia and Nightmare. As soon as he stepped out of the portal, the trio was stunned by the man who welcomed them. Maxwell. Michael tilted his head, staring at the man from top to bottom. The man welcomed Michael, Gaia, and Nightmare looked exactly the same as Maxwell. Believer Maxwell is my twin brother. I am Believer Vishrian. Welcome to Kingdom Thera. The man bowed and the trio did the same. Visit. For a better user experience, you must be Believer Ghost. Michael nodded. Yes, and this is my fiancée Elia and familiar Nightmare. After exchanging pleasantries, Vishrian finally led them towards the golden door. While walking towards the door, Michael felt the excitement coursing through his veins. It was time he dominated the most powerful continent in the world. The excitement to explore a new land coursed through his veins. However, Vishrian dosed cold water upon his excitement by taking out a pale blue face mask from his space ring. "Put this on before you step aside." Michael creased his brows. "I don't get it. There is a plague ravishing Kingdom Thera. Believer Ghost. The sinners are reaping what they sow." Vishrian said so calmly, like it was a simple matter. "Plague!" Gaia was in a state of shock. The last time a plague hit R, millions of people, including Nagas, died. You don't have to worry about the plague. The Great One and Two protect those who believe in them. These words showed the extent of Vishrian's idiocy. Although the Holy Church believers were good to him, Michael felt he was dealing with a bunch of fanatics. Given a chance, the Holy Church would do more harm than good. They just didn't have the resources and power to rival the Great Eight clans. But with the recent fall of Guardians, the Holy Church was getting more popular among the people. Michael may have given a torch to lunatics in disguise. So are we even allowed to go to Thera? Normally when a plague hit, they close the borders, right? Michael asked, standing before the golden door. They will close the borders soon. So I hope you will get what you're looking for, Believer Ghost. May the Great One and Two be with you and guide you, Vishrian calmly said, opening the door and revealing nothing but soft squashy clouds. There was no building or rods in front of him. Except, Michael saw an endless blue sky with puffy clouds stretched as far as he could see. Only then did he realize he was in the sky. When he took a step outside and turned around, he saw the Gothic-style building that was much grander, just like the one in Royal Land. Visit. For a better user experience, the church was built on a floating mountain like some buildings in Ukulun realm. We will meet again soon, Believer Vishrian. Michael quickly bowed towards Vishrian. He wanted to check on Eve. For some reason, he immediately worried about her. It almost felt like the two of them have some kind of strong bond. He didn't know before the Dark Lord used the time travel rune that Eve was his best friend. She sacrificed herself to save him. If it wasn't for her, Michael wouldn't be here. Although the Dark Lord reset the time, the deep friendship bond remained strong. Michael shot out from the mountain like a rocket, leaving a shock wave behind. In his haste, he failed to ask where the Voldegard compound was. Hopefully, Gaia knew where it was. Those are crazy bastards, Michael. A plague hit them? What the fuck? He was so calm. These morons are lunatics. Gaia cursed them, diving towards the city on the land. They seem just as bad as the Guardians, Nightmare said. It doesn't matter now. Let's go meet Eve. There is an opportunity here. No shit, Gaia rolled her eyes. I did some sick shit, but it feels wrong to see the plague as an opportunity. Gaia knew the obvious golden opportunity presented itself in the name of the plague. She knew Michael could pull some miracle and cure the plague. However, it felt wrong to get rich from a plague. I don't feel like that. We are not responsible for the plague. If someone else finds the cure, so be it. Otherwise, we may as well find the cure and sell it for millions. What about the poor? Nightmare asked Michael. There is no poverty in R. That's why it's called the most powerful and rich continent in the world. A farmer in R earns 10 times more than one in Elon or Azair. Gaia's words didn't only surprise Nightmare but also Michael. Visit. For a better user experience, it seemed like the rulers of other races were far better than the humans in ruling a kingdom. The closer they got to the city, the better Michael could see the majestic view of Ysirius. The city itself looked like a hybrid between fantasy and style. However, despite the majestic tall buildings, the streets looked empty and the gray mist around the city gave a gloomy look to it. The Voldegard compound is that way. Follow me. Gaia pointed at the northern side of the city where Michael saw a mountain resembling Mount Fuji in the distance. Michael and Nightmare flew behind Gaia while noticing the eerie city beneath them. So many sick. Nightmare's superior hearing sense enabled him to hear the countless coughing and vomiting coming from the city. At the moment, inside the Voldegard compound, several dead bodies in plate armor riddled the front yard. Some of the soldiers had their helmets removed so one could see the grayish skin and the dark green webs of veins underneath the gray skin. The broken fountain in the center was still pumping out water from the lion's head. The dead bodies formed a line surrounding the majestic castle of House Voldegard. A regular gate with great wooden doors, a drawbridge, and hot oil pots guarded the inhabitants of the castle. It was the only easy way in. Like any place in R, neatly pruned trees decorated the land along with colorful flower beds. The round towers dwarfed everything below them and were connected by fortified, thick walls made of gray stone. The decorated windows added an extra charm to the castle, as the walls had overhanging crenellations for archers and artillery. But at the moment, there were no archers or anyone to man the giant crossbows. The gate, which guarded the castle for hundreds of years, fell for the first time as the compound of Voldegards became a battlefield. Michael was not the only one who viewed the plague as an opportunity. House Rotgard sieged House Voldegard when the latter was at its weakest. When the plague hit Ysirius, House Voldegard ensured the citizens got the best treatment possible instead of quarantining themselves like many noble families. As a result, many of the Voldegards were infected by the plague and lost their ability to use arch energy. The plague killed almost half of the Voldegards, including several fusion stage protectors. Since they lost the protectors, House Rotgard, which ran away as soon as the plague hit the city, returned to decimate Voldegards for once and for all. But one protector of Voldegard stood between the House Rotgard soldiers and the castle, Eve Voldegard. Like a lioness facing hyenas, she stood tall with her hammer in her hands. The red-armored House Rotgard soldiers cowered after she killed most of their fellow soldiers. When they started the siege, they had 100 soldiers, but now the number was reduced to 30. Despite Eve's core-strengthening cultivation stage, she even managed to kill a soul-refining stage warrior. Visit. For the best notes in the experience. I can do this all day. Eve wiped off the blood running from her mouth's corner and taunted the surrounded soldiers. Especially, her cold gaze was on the man who led the siege, Igor Rotgard. Igor was a tall youngster with long red hair. He covered his mouth and nose with a red dragon mask. He wore a simple robe that revealed his hairy chest as well as the tattoo of a fire-breathing red dragon. Since all the fusion stage protectors had succumbed to the plague, House Rotgard only sent the core-strengthening stage warriors along with a couple of soul refiners. Fortunately, the soul refiners from Voldegards killed House Rotgard's soul refiners before dying due to the wounds. Eve killed the last soul refiner and many core-strengthening stage warriors and remained the last woman standing from House Voldegard. But you don't have all day. Look at you. You're tired, breathing heavily, and bleeding from your ears. You and I both know you won't stand much longer. So do yourself a favor and step aside. I'll promise to give you a proper burial, Igor said, slowly stepping towards Eve. He was right, and Eve knew it. She could feel the arch energy in her body slowly dating away. Soon, she would lose the sense of arch energy as well as strength in her body. Even lifting her hammer wasn't as easy as before. Every cell in her body screamed at her to drop the hammer and close her eyes. She had been fighting for days without any rest. If it wasn't for House Rotgard's resolution to use minimal force to wipe out House Voldegard, House Rotgard would have destroyed House Voldegard by now. But, for some reason, every time Eve blinked, he saw Ghost and his smiling face. Felt like yesterday, she fought together with him. Her sister was fighting for her life in the castle, but all she could think was how good it would be to fight together with Ghost one last time. Step closer, and I'll give you a proper burial, Eve snickered. Well, I tried to be nice, just like my healer said. I think it's time to do things my way. By his way, Igor obviously meant killing Eve. Instead of sending soldiers one by one to her, Igor signaled all 30 soldiers to flank her simultaneously from all directions. Whoosh! Eve began to spin the hammer as fast as she could to the point Igor only saw a blur and heard the whistling sound of the wind. Although he was here to kill Eve and her family, he couldn't help admiring her. He almost felt pity for the Voldegards. Whoa, come on! When Igor noticed his soldiers stepping towards Eve like mindless fools, visit. For the best known Surangi experience. She will beat the crap out of you if you get too close. Idiots. Use your spells for God's sake. The soldiers quickly halted their steps, preparing to cast spells. I swear to gods, one of these days, I am gonna lose my mind and start killing you incompetent fools. After getting yelled at by Igor, the soldiers of Rotgard finally began to cast spells. On the other hand, Eve kept spinning her hammer and prepared herself to be bombarded with spells. She was more of a close combat fighter rather than a spellcaster. Thus, instead of casting spells, she chose to hit her foes with the hammer. It always worked for her and she wasn't going to change now. Pillar of Iron. One soldier at the level 10 core strengthening stage raised his hand, forming a giant pillar made of energy in the air. It was so large and long that it would hit his fellow soldiers before hitting Eve. My expectations are way low for you guys, but holy fuck, you keep surprising me. Igor felt like he was about to lose his mind. Instead, he slowly started to learn why House Rotgard could never surpass House Voldegard. With incompetent soldiers like them, how could they achieve anything, let alone wipe out the Voldegards? He got more furious when he noticed the soldier keeping the pillar in the air instead of just hitting Eve with it. Hit her! Igor shouted. He wanted the pillar to hit the others more than Eve because they were just staring at the pillar instead of finishing casting spells. Yes, boss! Finally, the soldier shouted and brought the pillar, swinging down at Eve. Boom! However, the moment the pillar hit Eve, instead of Eve flying away, it was the soldiers who got scattered by the shockwave. The shockwave didn't spare Igor either, as he too was sent flying several meters by the force. When Igor managed to get himself to his feet, he saw someone standing in front of Eve with a black shield. Ghost! Eve couldn't believe her eyes. A fucking fusion stage? What the fuck? Igor scratched his eyes in utter disbelief. The man who shielded Eve looked so young, perhaps younger than him. Yet he was at the fusion stage. Thank you for inviting me to a plague-ridden city, Eve. Ghost rolled his eyes. How can I suffer alone? Eve let out an exhausted chuckle, stumbling forward. I got your back. Michael quickly wrapped his hand around Eve's shoulder to steady her. Visit. For a better user experience, you know you don't have to do this, right? Eve could barely utter these words. I do? Michael gave a quick rub to her shoulder and turned his gaze towards Igor. Dude, look, this can go two ways. I will kill you and your guys and your family will get involved. Fight me, my family will get involved. The two families will fight an all-out war. We both suffer and another one will try to take out the one who survives. Or, you take your guys and head home and wait for the plague to wipe out the Voldegards. Michael calmly talked to Igor. If you die here, it doesn't matter if your family kills me or not. You will be under 6 feet instead of enjoying your golden age. So why don't you have a little patience and choose the second option? Igor deeply thought about what the youngster just said. Finally, it made sense to Igor. There was no point in dying, and Igor knew no way in hell he could defeat a fusion stage warrior with these incompetent fools. Boss, we should get out here. My mask has a crack in it. Mine too. Oh my God, we are gonna die. Boss, save us. Looking at the soldiers shouting, Michael almost laughed. Oh fuck. They are embarrassing me. Igor screamed inside. If anyone asked, I fought and survived a fusion stage cultivator. Got it? Igor asked his men as they frantically bobbed their heads up and down. They wanted to get out of the place as fast as they could and nothing else mattered to them. Finally, after 2 days of battle, Eve saw Igor and his men flying away from their compound. After their figures disappeared into the clouds, she heaved a sigh of relief. Wow, those are really different. Where I came from, they would have chosen death. Don't be too happy. They will return here with more guys. And what the hell? When and how did you reach the fusion stage? I'd love to explain, but can we do it inside? I was kinda hoping for a grand welcome from you. I have to say, I am a little bit disappointed. Visit. For a better user experience, it's not too late to go back to Elon. Ghost. Eve whispered while Michael was taking her back inside the castle. And spread the plague to Elon? No thanks. How about we cure the plague and get filthy rich, huh? At this point, Eve couldn't hear him clearly. She just smiled and closed her eyes, trusting Ghost got her back. With Eve dosing out on his shoulder, Michael pushed open the giant black metal door to see the gloomy, dimly lit hallway void of any life. Just like any other castle hallways, the walls were decorated with portraits of various Voldegards. As Michael was walking on the red carpet, he could hear coughs and growling coming from inside. "Jennifer, Jenny," Eve began to mumble under her breath. "I got her," Michael whispered to Eve, walking her to the hall. As soon as he stepped out of the hallway, the sight of countless people on the marble floor welcomed him. The people were coughing and vomiting blood. He didn't expect the air to be so pungent with a strong nauseating smell. It was enough to turn any grown man's face green. "You better pray I don't get sick, bastard." Michael heard an angry shout and looked up to see Gaia climbing down the stairs with Nightmare on her shoulder. "And Eve Voldegard, I presume?" Gaia looked at Eve, who kept mumbling Jennifer's name. "What then ruckus out there? Did you kill them all?" Gaia asked, standing on the stairs instead of getting to the hall. "Nah, they seemed nice. When I said to turn back and leave, they really did that. If it was back on Elon, we would have had an all-out war by now. We may have something far worse in our hands." Gaia looked at the elves, humans, and beast men with gray skin on the floor. She creased her brows, looking at them growling and coughing up blood. "Look what we found." Then, with a flick of her wrist, Gaia took out an empty vial from her space ring. She threw it at Michael, and when he caught the vial, he immediately recognized what was inside the vial, just by the smell of it. "Our healing potion. They were treating them with our healing potion," Gaia said with a tinge of surprise hiding within her voice. "Finding a treatment. That's half the battle won. Let's put her in her room and start working on a cure." With the system's help, finding a cure for the plague didn't even seem like a big deal to Michael. But, as an alchemist, he had a few ideas about where to start. "We may know where her room is. Follow me." Nightmare leaped into the air and flapped his wings, leading Michael above the stairs to the second floor. Visit. For the best known to surround the experience, Michael took Eve in his arms and flew behind Nightmare. Despite the fact there was a woman in his arms, Gaia didn't feel the slightest jealousy because she trusted him. Plus, Michael told Gaia about how he felt about Eve. If Eve was a friend of Ghost, she would be a friend of hers too. Following Nightmare, Michael entered a spacious corridor and flew past several rooms. Every single room contained a sick person inside. After passing 10 or so rooms, Michael came before a marble door where he saw the name Eve Voldegard engraved. Gaia pushed open the door, but instead of finding an empty room, they found Jennifer lying in a large circle bed in the dark room. The curtains were all shut to prevent any light from coming through the window. To be honest, Michael felt like he had entered a boy's room because the room was messy as hell. There was not a single book in the room, but broken dummies, swords, shields, and robes were thrown all over the place. He even saw a brat hanging onto a portrait of a lion. Jennifer's skin was gray, unlike Eve's, and they saw blood oozing out of Jennifer's ear, drenching the white pillow beneath. Michael gently placed Eve beside Jennifer. Although he shouldn't place Eve beside a patent like Jennifer, Eve was already infected, and there was no point in quarantining Eve. They were all past the point of getting quarantined. Instead, Michael focused on finding the cure. As a first step, Michael placed his hand on Eve, sticking a needle inside her wrist from his APD. He took a blood sample from Eve and took a giant needle from his system storage. "That's one big-ass needle." Gaia raised her brows, seeing Michael sticking the needle into Jennifer's neck and sucking out enough blood to turn her face paler. Even after taking a giant needle through her neck, Jennifer didn't move an inch. Nightmare could barely hear her heartbeats. If he was right, Jennifer didn't have long to live. Maybe a week or two at most. Michael put the 2 vials of blood into his system storage before summoning the system. We sell the 80% pure healing potion for 9,000 and the 90% one for 12,000. When I get my hands on that motherfucker who is screwing us, they'll cut his head and shove it way above where the sun doesn't shine. Gaia's words frightened Eve, as she never expected a girl like her to be so foul-mouthed and brash. Eve looked at Nightmare to see him grinning embarrassedly. "You'll get used to it. That's not a problem we have to deal with right now." "Eve, who was the first person to get infected?" asked Michael. a dark elf, but he is buried in Essia, a village in Ysirius. I don't think they would let us excavate his remains. We will get arrows instead permission. There is no way they would let us. Then we want, Michael calmly said, visit. For a better user experience, we will go there by night, dig his grave, take whatever Ghost needs, and get the hell out of there before no one notices us. Gaia quickly laid out a plan as Eve stared at them wide-eyed. It was shocking to see Ghost and Elia talk so casually about grave robbing inside a dark elf territory. Usually, Eve would have stopped them, but looking at her sister and thinking about her family, she couldn't say no to something that might lead Ghost to find a cure. Are you sure you can find a cure for this? The last time Eve heard, the entire kingdom of Thera and the Empress Court of Healers were trying to come up with a cure yet had no breakthrough. However, Ghost talked so simply about finding a cure. His words sounded confident rather than arrogant. Somehow, Eve believed he could really find the cure. After all, Michael had a reputation for pulling several miracles, such as becoming the youngest fusion stage cultivator. Even Rowena wasn't as young as Michael when she reached the fusion stage. But before we do anything, we need more healing potions. Unfortunately, I don't have enough to keep everyone in the castle sustained. Can you brew enough potions if you had the ingredients? Eve quickly asked Ghost. If I brewed until the nightfall, we would have enough to keep them alive until I come up with a cure. What about moving to another safe house or something? Those guys who attacked you won't stay far away for long. They might get impatient and try to wipe you out. I know a place. Eve quickly thought of the place her father bought weeks before he fell sick. Since it was a recent purchase, none of the outsiders knew about it. Does this place happen to have a portal connected to it? Unfortunately, Eve shook her head. We have to fly there. Michael pondered for a moment before standing up from the bed. Okay, erase the plan. Elia, put everyone in a large carriage and fly there. I will stay here and brew the healing potions. Michael could fly to Eve's safe place with the two girls, but Michael wanted to stay in the castle to kill in case anyone showed up to wipe out the Voldegards. Suppose House Rotgard sent fusion stage cultivators to finish the job. In that case, Michael could turn into Dark Lord, wipe them out and earn enough experience points to level up without worrying about revealing his true self. Ghost had to fear making enemies but not the Dark Lord. Why are you doing this, Ghost? You have only known me for a few days. Yves's voice stuttered. To be honest, I have this feeling. A feeling you and I are so close, like best friends. For a change, Michael just told Eve the truth instead of making up a story. Eve was completely taken aback by surprise as she too had the same feeling. Visit. For a better user experience despite everything, Eve sadly chuckled. I have the same feeling too. Is it weird? I mean, we've only known each other for a few days, but I feel like we've known each other for ages. I think we may have been best friends in our previous lives. Who knows? We may have been. Michael just smiled before looking at the front yard through the hole in the window. The previously neatly taken care of and pruned front yard now looked like a battlefield. All those soldiers deserved a proper burial, but Michael had the living to save. After finding the cure, he didn't only have the chance to get rich but also had a way to solidify his friendship with House Voldegard. If he played his cards right, he could become an influential person in R right out of the bat. To achieve anything, he had to find the cure first. Follow me. I will show you the storage. I have to give you everything you need before I lose consciousness like the others. Eve gestured at them to follow her behind. She took a deep breath and took each step with great difficulty. When you lose consciousness, just relax and try not to worry about anything. When you wake up, everything will be back to normal, Michael said, following Eve through the corridor. I doubt it, Ghost. Most of the protectors are dead except my father and uncle. Even if you manage to cure them, it'd be near impossible for the House Voldegard to get back on its feet. Difficult times lie ahead, Ghost. Although Eve sounded strong, Michael could sense the sorrow and despair in her tone. As she said, even if he cured the plague, the House Voldegard wouldn't be as strong as it used to be. Several other clans might attempt to take over the Voldegard or what's left of it like vultures. However, there was a way where House Voldegard could survive and dominate Thera. We can help you with that, But it depends on how ruthless you are, Gaia exclaimed. Even with Ghost, if Eve didn't have the resolution and ruthlessness to do what's necessary, no one could revive House Voldegard. Michael and Gaia were on the same wavelength as she had the same idea as Michael. I saw my men getting slaughtered in front of my eyes. They died so House Voldegard could live. I think that would make me more ruthless than you actually think I am. Elia. Good. When you are in a position where you can't reach your foes, bring them down to your level. How are we going to do that? Eve curiously asked Gaia. We are going to use the plague against all your enemies. Eve immediately halted her steps to turn around to look at both Michael and Gaia. Nightmare wasn't as surprised as Eve because he expected it. On the contrary, he would have been surprised if Michael and Gaia didn't try to exploit the plague to their advantage. Visit. For the best known experience, you are serious? Eve asked, pretty shaken up by Gaia's words. We specialize in dismantling enemies. Eve. Just think of us as your hired fixers. Michael grinned, giving Eve some courage to move forward with their plan. But even if she disagreed, Michael had already decided to weaponize the plague and spread it to his foes. He just needed some guinea pigs, and House Rockguard seemed like a great testing place. After Eve, Gaia and Nightmare left the castle. Michael sat in the middle of a room filled with racks. Each rack contained several rows, and each row had various herbs and ingredients. The whole room contained at least a ton of ingredient one needed to refine thousands of pills and potions. At that moment, Michael had an oak table before him with a bunch of ingredients and empty vials. My lord, raise the glass of water you asked. Azazel brought Michael a glass of hot water and placed it on the table beside the herbs. Michael's dark flames dimly lit the already dark room. Since Azazel had a physical body, he was helping Michael by bringing the herbs needed to brew the healing potion. My lord, you've been brewing the healing potion for hours now. You should take a break, Azazel suggested to Michael, only to see Michael shaking his head. I don't need rest, but what I need is the tissue sample of patient 0. Did you get the blood from the deceased? Yes, my lord. Azazel flicked his wrist, taking out 3 vials of dark grayish blood. I also took the liberty to place spiders inside and around the castle, my lord. Someone may have disrupted the security arrays because I found no resistance. The main warehouse is empty. I assume someone cleaned the place out before the plague broke out. That someone is Eve's father. Apparently, he transported their treasury to the Immortal Council's vault. Immortal Council? This was the first time Azazel had heard about Immortal Council. Michael wasn't familiar with them either until Eve brought it up. Yeah, after someone reaches the half-immortal stage, they would be invited to join the Immortal Council. Eve's ancestor is a member of the council. Still, they got attacked? Azazel questioned Michael. He could understand how a family of someone powerful enough to be the Immortal Council's member could be attacked and almost wiped out from the map. To be honest, Michael asked Eve the same question. First, the council won't meddle in mortal affairs. Michael emphasized the word mortal like he was air quoting the word. That means if you're a council member and your family gets into trouble, you can't pitch in and rescue them, unless the council members agree upon it. Secondly, those old bastards have lived long enough away from their families to not give a damn about their descendants. How could they do it? I don't know. But I guess living 300-400 years in seclusion away from friends and family will do that to you, Michael explained to Azazel while throwing the herbs into the dark flames dancing atop his palm. So they have rules against saving their families? Azazel asked, knitting his brows together. I am afraid so. As far as I heard from Eve and Gaia, they are like a bunch of crooked politicians who have nothing but time on their hands. They play politics and cultivate to get higher stages. Visit. For a better user experience, but what if a member intervenes in mortal affairs? They just debate over the issue and pass their judgment on you, which in most cases is kicking you out of the council or smite you to hell. Seems like joining the council has nothing but disadvantages. Azazel frowned as Michael chuckled. Apparently, after reaching the half-immortal stage, Climbing each level would take decades. That is, if the cultivator is a genius. So the council gives you unlimited resources to cultivate. In return, you don't meddle in mortal affairs. It makes sense. Just imagine immortals and half-immortals running around the world. They will be absolute superpowers. They could enslave a kingdom if they felt like it. Having a council to put a leash on them is not a bad idea. At least it works great for me. When I wipe out some of the noble families, no one would be there to stop me. I just need to find a way to deal with the fusion stage cultivators. Michael explained his thoughts to Azazel while brewing the potions. So the council is one of the great 8 clans? No, they are like an independent group. As I said, they don't give a shit about anyone. A most one member could do for their descendants is doing small things like providing access to a vault. Azazel nodded as Michael waved his hand, putting out the dark flames. Then, Michael took the blood vials on the table and kept them before his eyes. Now I just need to find a cure before weaponizing the plague. The last thing I need is to bring down a plague upon my subordinates. One wrong move and everything will come back to bite me in my ass. Michael waved his hand as the vials disappeared from sight. When Michael finally rose from his chair, there were thousands of healing potions glistening in the darkness. The radiant blue light emitted by the healing potions brightened the room. We shall go meet Eve and Gaia. What about this castle, my lord? Just let the rot guards have it. When I am done, there won't be anyone standing against the Voldegards. Although Michael decided to help Voldegards because of Eve, his main goal was to make Voldegards his allies. In addition, having a powerful family by his side would make establishing a name for himself in R much easier. What would you have me do, my lord? Just stay here and monitor the situation. I am pretty sure the rot guards would return soon. Do not make any moves. Just observe and report. Got it? Yes, my lord. The latest _episodes are on the website. After ordering Azazel to stay in the castle, Michael put the healing potion in his system storage and exited the storage through the dark door. A few hours ago, the dark clouds shrouded the sky, preventing the golden sun rays from reaching the plague-ridden Kingdom Thera. Under the rambling thunderclouds, Nightmare soared through the clouds like an arrow carrying a giant carriage on his back. The carriage was large enough to contain 120 people inside, including Eve and Gaia. The Voldegards used the giant carriage to transport massive pillars to build castles and bridges. A rare race called Giants pulled these carriages from one end to another. Fortunately, Nightmare grew almost 18 meters long to carry the carriage upon his back. Inside the carriage, Eve leaned against the carriage holding Gaia's hand. I don't think I have much longer. Are we there yet? You tell us. Where are we going? Asked Gaia after hearing Eve's weak voice. You will see. Eve gently brushed Jennifer's head, which lay on Eve's lap. Her face had almost turned to stone-like color. In simple words, Jennifer seemed like a statue. How did you meet Ghost? Eve turned her gaze towards Gaia. Just like you, I was in a helpless situation. I thought I was done for, but he changed my life. I have lost count of how many times he pulled some shit no one would imagine. You really think he could find the cure, huh? I know he would. Trust me, you will recollect all these events and laugh soon. I wish. Eve let out a deep breath as Gaia felt Nightmare slowing down. Hey, I think we reached the place. Elia, you should come out. Gaia sensed a tinge of shock in Nightmare's voice. Therefore, Gaia squeezed Eve's hand, reassuring her before dashing out of the carriage. As soon as she exited the carriage, her eyes went so wide to the point her eyes looked like they could pop out any moment. The reason for her shock was the barren floating mountain on the horizon. The floating mountain looked like a sword. The base was the blade, and the tall pillar resembled the hilt from which an elegant streamy waterfall flowed. However, unlike the floating mountains she had seen in the Aquilon realm, the sword-like floating mountain was barren and void of any man-made buildings. Visit. For the best known surrounding experience other than the waterfall, there was nothing in the floating mountain. After starting at the barren floating mountain for a few minutes, the duo resumed flying and approached the island. The closer they got, the bigger the floating mountain looked. Yet, it was far from exceeding the floating mountains in the Ukulun realm by far. It took Nightmare and Gaia a few minutes to land on the barren land and put down the carriage on the ground. Considering the ground had no trees, and the clouds above them looked dark and gloomy, Gaia decided to keep them inside the carriage instead of taking them out. She didn't want the sick people to get drenched in heavy rain. "This place looks good." Nightmare creased his brows. "This place looks barren and deserted. There is nothing in the place that would make anyone say it's good." "You lack imagination, lizard." Nightmare rolled his eyes. "I don't lack imagination, but I just don't see the point of imagining anything in the place." While Nightmare gave the sick a healing potion, Michael woke up Eve. "I am awake," Eve spoke in a weak tone. After slowly opening her eyes, she looked at Michael and Gaia. The recent memories flooded her mind. Since Michael had given her the healing potion, she slowly regained her strength. However, the plague effect prevented her from using arch energy. As a result, her cultivation dropped from the core strengthening stage to the body refining stage. She quickly looked down to see how her sister was doing. Unfortunately, even Michael's 90% pure healing potion couldn't wake her up. Eve combed Jennifer's hair and bowed down, gently placing a kiss on her forehead. "We should go now to reach the Essia by nightfall." Eve slowly stood up, holding the wall for support. "Whoa, cool your roll, Eve. You're not coming." "What?" Eve creased her brows immediately after hearing Michael. "No offense, but in your current condition, you'll be more of a burden than help." Surprisingly, Eve dropped the hammer and let out a heavy breath. "You're right, but I can't sit here and do nothing. How can I? My people are dying. I need to do something. Otherwise, I'd lose my mind." Both Michael and Gaia understood her feelings. Thus, they looked at each other for a moment before Michael turned his gaze back to Eve. "I get you. What about this? You can fly atop Nightmare and be our lookout. That way, you wouldn't have to wait here wondering what we are up to." "I can do that." Eve quickly bobbed her head up and down. "It's settled then?" Gaia nodded, waving her hand as her silver robes turned completely black. She also covered her face with a cloak and a dark mask. Seeing Gaia adjusting her mask, Michael said, "Don't fret, the plague isn't airborne. As far as I studied the samples, it's spreading in water and food." "Really?" Gaia sighed in relief. "So you had any galas recently?" Nightmare asked Eve. Almost all the Voldegards were infected by the plague. So if the plague wasn't airborne and spreading via water and food, Nightmare concluded that the Voldegards hosted a gala or a feast. Otherwise, they wouldn't have succumbed to the plague at the same time. The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. We hosted a gala celebrating Jennifer's birthday. All the Voldegards were there, including our ancestor, the half-immortal one? Asked Michael to see Eve nodding her head. Was he sick? Gaia wondered whether the plague could affect the immortal or not. To be honest, she didn't believe it could because the half-immortals and immortals wouldn't die by normal means such as illness. No, that I know of. When Father met him before transporting our treasury to the council's vault, he wasn't sick. At least my father didn't think so. So it's not affecting anyone above fusion stage. Michael pondered, but soon he willed the system, changing his robes. Since Michael was always adorned in completely black, the changes weren't much noticeable. He just put on the mage robes he bought from the system and covered himself. Additionally, he also wore a cat mask underneath the cloak to hide his face completely. But after covering the face with the cat mask, Michael willed the system and transformed his face completely just to be safe. Nightmare. Take Eve with you and stay in cover behind the darkness and the clouds. You should wear something else to cover yourself. We don't want those fuckers to make any connection, Gaia said to Eve. She sounded more annoyed and furious than usual when she mentioned the Dark Elves. To Michael, it was evident Gaia has some kind of history with the Dark Elves. Eve nodded and closed her eyes for a moment. Gradually, her white robes turned dark, and a cloak appeared around her head, covering her face with darkness. Just like Michael, she also took out a bear mask and put it on her face. Finally, She looked at her hammer, and with a heavy heart, she flicked her wrist as the hammer slowly faded into thin air. "Follow us at a safe distance." Gaia turned around. "Do you know where the village is?" But Gaia halted her steps when she heard Eve. "I happened to come across the village once. Let's go, Ghost." Gaia didn't linger around for Eve to ask more questions. Instead, leading Michael, Gaia soared towards the sky to the point they went above the dark clouds. "What's the story? You messed with the dark elves, didn't you?" Michael asked, flying beside her. "Why do you assume that? Do you think I always mess with others? I am not a racist." "You are," Michael chuckled. "You hate the other races. That's the definition of a racist." Visit. For a better user experience, I don't hate you. You used to. Remember, you tried to kill me with a candle holder. You know what? Fuck you. I am not a racist. If you think I am a racist, just wait till you meet the dark elves. She just snickered and sped up. Considering Michael studied with the elves in Mazeroth, he could understand the meaning behind Gaia's words. However, he didn't have the pleasure of meeting any dark elves in Mazeroth. Now that Michael thought about it, he had never met a single dark one since he came to this world. By the time they reached the outskirts of the village, night had fallen upon them, erasing any light from existence. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, brightening the sky out of its darkness for only a single moment. The rain drizzled, creating a piece of rhythmic music. The journey towards Essia village was peaceful as Gaia didn't say a word until Michael saw a distant forest. He shouldn't have seen the forest from above the clouds. Each tree in the forest stood at least 300 meters tall and 50 meters wide. For a few moments, Michael stopped flying and stared at the forest with giant trees. He had never seen such a forest made with trees that seemed to be touching the clouds. "What is this place?" Michael asked Gaia in utter shock. To his surprise, the trees were glowing like a city. When he looked closer, he could see man-made structures in the forest. The dark elves built houses inside and outside the tree above the ground. He could at least see hundreds of elegant tree houses that looked extremely cozy. Instead of runes or lamps, the houses were lit with luminescent mushrooms. These colorful mushrooms lit the three-layered houses. The first layer glistened in blue, brightening the crowded little homes. The houses built above the first layer were more grandiloquent than the first layered houses and lit with emerald green mushrooms. Finally, the third layer on top had fewer but grand houses. All these higher-level houses were lit with radiant golden mushrooms. All these three-layered combined looked awe-inspiring. Before resuming their travel, Michael waited for the dark clouds to spark lightning flashes. Then, he counted the time between each lightning flash. After calculating their approximate gap, Michael prepared to cast the lightning dash. Michael slowly hovered towards Gaia and held her hand. 1, 2. Michael began to count in his mind and cast the lightning dash spell as soon as he counted up to 3. Just as he cast the spell, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, masking the golden trail left by Michael. In a few blinks of an eye, Michael reached the other end of the forest, where Michael saw a lush green field with several wooden headstones. The headstones were accompanied by saplings of different ages. Some saplings had grown almost 4 feet, while some just had foot-tall saplings growing out of the grass field. Luckily for Michael and Gaia, the graveyard had no dark elves guarding it. Dreend Esrit, that's the name of the dark elf who died first. Gaia, who learned the name from Eve, told Michael. "Let's split up and search for the headstone." Michael instructed Gaia and descended towards the graveyard. When Michael landed in the graveyard, he saw a wooden headstone named Dremzal Rinzudia. Although he was in a dark elf's graveyard, he didn't desecrate the place. Instead, he floated a few inches away from the cemetery, leaving no footprints. He respected the dead no matter their race. He floated above the headstones, checking the names one by one. Gaia also checked on the headstones, but unlike Michael, she left a few footsteps until she saw Michael floating above the ground. The latest _AP_SODIes are on _ website. "Ghost, we are in position." Michael heard Nightmare's voice in his head. He quickly looked up, activating the thermal vision to see a tiny ball of heat signature behind the clouds. Keep an eye out for us. Well, get out of here as soon as we find the right grave. Michael informed Nightmare and continued to look for the grave that belonged to one Dreamed Esrit. Michael's luck finally turned up as he found the headstone named Dreamed Esrit. Hey, found the grave! Michael quickly talked to Gaia through the earpiece as she dashed towards him. Without wasting time, Michael took out a shovel from the system storage and began digging the grave. Michael dug the grave as fast as he could and hit the casket made of red hickory in a few minutes. Tap, tap, tap. Gaia heard the shovel hitting the casket and felt excited. However, Nightmare's words halted her excitement. Look out! But before Gaia and Michael could react, an arrow flew past Gaia's face, butting through the cloak and a strand of her hair. Shit, shit, shit! Gaia quickly turned around, realizing they had been found out by the Dark Elves. Watch my back! Michael didn't lose his calm but increased his digging speed. He wasn't going to turn back without getting what he needed. While Michael was breaking open the casket, Gaia raised her arm towards the sky, creating a thin shield around them. Fuck! They are here? Gaia cursed, looking at the numerous Dark Elves flying toward them. So much for being stealthy? Gaia snickered as the arrows hit the shield but couldn't penetrate through. However, the more arrows hit the shield, the weaker the shield became. Visit. For the best known to the experience, hurry up. For example, the dark elf who appeared in the sky had an eagle tattooed on his neck as well as an arrow pointing towards the sky on his forehead, right between his brows. You have desecrated a sacred ground. The dark elf spoke in a cold, murderous tone. Since Michael paid the system to mask his actual cultivation level, the Dark Elves thought he was only at the core formation stage. As a result, the Dark Elves felt superior and didn't bother to call for backup. The Dark Elf who threatened Michael and Gaia was the strongest, who stood at Soul Refining Stage Level 4. Put him down, the Dark Elf said, looking at the decayed body hanging on Michael's shoulder like a piece of cloth. Visit. For the best known to experience, no one has to get hurt. Just lower your bows and let us go, Gaia calmly said. But the Dark Elves didn't even budge, except their stars intensified more. Leave, Michael growled at the Dark Elf before them a few meters away. However, he didn't direct the word to him. In reality, he ordered Nightmare, not the Dark Elves. You will pay for your crime at the first light, the Dark Life coldly said without reacting to Michael's words. But, unknown to Michael, today was an auspicious day in the Dark Elves' calendar. Thus, they were prohibited from taking life unless facing a calamity. Since both Michael and Gaia had no weapons and didn't pose a threat to them, the Dark Elves had no need to kill them. But it was only temporary. As soon as the first light appeared on the horizon, the Dark Elves would send an arrow through their heads, ending their lives. I'll take the body and return it in a few days, Michael calmly said to the Dark Elf. To be honest, Michael didn't want to fight the Dark Elves because he had desecrated their holy ground. They had all the right to kill them. If someone had done the same to a place Michael held holy, he would have killed them in a blink of an eye. That was why Michael didn't raise his hand to kill the Dark Elves. Whoosh! Instead of speaking with words, the Dark Elf chose to talk with an arrow. The Dark Elf sent an arrow straight into the ground a few inches before Michael in a blink of an eye. I'll take that as a no. Michael put the body down, cracking his neck. Remember, I gave you a choice. Michael slowly took a step forward. Stay put. It won't take too long, Michael said to Gaia and turned his gaze back towards the Dark Elf. Michael completely ignored the other Dark Elves because they were all only at the core strengthening stage. Not that Michael underestimated the Dark Elves, but rather, he was simply too strong to be concerned. Except for the Soul Refining Stage Dark Elf who seemed to possess superior archery skills, the others didn't pose any threat to Michael. Visit. For the best known to the experience, considering the Soul Refining Stage Dark Elf was the strongest, Michael targeted him. Seeing Michael readying for a battle, the Dark Elves tensed. Then, they slowly pulled back the bowstring as they were only inches away from releasing the arrows they nocked. Whoosh! Suddenly, Michael dashed at the leading dark elf as fast as a lightning bolt. His speed startled the dark elves. Still, they managed to release the arrows as Gaia quickly cast the shield spell around her. Since she only concentrated the arch energy around her, the shield formed around her was stronger than before, which covered an area several times larger. The dark elf leaped back, firing a golden arrow. But Michael simply caught the arrow in mid-air, startling the dark elf. It shouldn't have been possible for a measly core formation stage warrior. Despite his shock and the fact Michael caught the first arrow, the dark elf fired again. This time, the arrow soared towards Michael faster than the previous one, almost at the speed of a bullet. Yet, the result was the same. At that time, Michael had a golden arrow in each hand. Whoosh! 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 The dark elf rapidly fired arrow after arrow, and so did the others, only to see Michael using the arrows as steps to climb higher into the air. In a few blinks of an eye, Michael reached the dark elf leader using the arrows as steps in midair. Except for a few, the dark elves targeted Michael. Because Michael was too close to their leader, they were forced to move around to adjust their aims. Gaia saw Michael move as swiftly as a feather in the wind, evading the arrows and fighting the dark elf. Surprisingly, the dark elf was just good in hand-to-hand combat as he was in archery. Thus, the dark elf managed to block and dodge Michael's punches. The way the dark elf dodged and blocked his punches surprised Michael. Usually, an archer wouldn't be as proficient in close combat as the dark elf. The dark elf blocked Michael's punches with the bow and arrow. If Michael lost his concentration even for a second, the dark elf would break his mask and stab him in the chest with the arrow. Visit. For a better user experience, obviously, the dark elf was a good fighter, but Michael was better. The more he fought with the dark elf, the more he learned about the dark elf's fighting style. Hence, Michael was able to predict his moves before even he could make them. As a result, when the dark elf tried to block Michael's left hook, Michael quickly plunged his knee into the dark elf's gut. Arg! The dark elf groaned and missed to notice the fist coming towards him in pain. Bang! The dark elf surprised Michael again by grabbing Michael's fist. Michael did not expect the dark elf to recover so soon. Luckily, Michael still had the arrow in his hand. Without delaying, Michael pulled out his fist, stabbing the dark elf with the arrow in his other hand. He plunged the arrow's head straight into the dark elf's ribcage without cutting any of his major organs. "Commander!" the dark elves shouted, looking at Michael stabbing the dark elf again and again. The dark elf was lucky Michael didn't go for the kill. Instead, he rapidly stabbed the dark elf to make him bleed and weaker. "Drop your bows, or I'll slit his throat right now." Michael moved behind the dark elf, who had blood leaking out of his side, and put the bloody arrow against the dark elf's throat. "You should listen to him," Gaia coldly snarled at the dark elves. Then, seeing their commander's life in danger, the dark elves hesitated but eventually lowered their bows. "You have become our enemy?" the dark elf whispered, gritting his teeth. "It won't take long to slit your throat and kill your friends. Know that I didn't want to kill you but save you. You will understand soon enough," Michael whispered into the dark elf's ear as the dark elves stared at him with eyes full of anger and murderous intent. If stares could kill a person, Michael would have died several times by now. The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. "Hey, race your fresh water. Put it here," Gaia instructed the Nightmare as Nightmare walked towards the bench and placed the barrel beside the table. "That's gross." Nightmare rolled his eyes, seeing the needle getting filled with a thick grayish liquid. "How long will it take?" Eve couldn't help but ask Michael. She had lost so many closest family members in the last couple of weeks and couldn't bear the thought of losing her father, mother, and sister. But she lacked the knowledge or ability to find a cure. Deep down she knew she didn't have a way to save her family. That was the reason she drowned herself in battle. Ghost was the last ray of hope she had. System. Instead of answering Eve, Michael put the flesh and the needle into his system storage. Then he summoned the system, analyzing the samples, creating a formula, converting the formula into a potion recipe. Michael waited for the system to finish creating the formula patiently even though time was of the essence. Just give him some time, Gaia said to Eve, noticing Ghost's silence. Visit. For a better user experience for almost 10 minutes. Only silence filled the lonely mountain, and they heard nothing but the melody of the waterfall. Cure found. Imparting the recipe into the host's brain. Finally, the system etched the recipe into Michael's brain in the form of a potion recipe. He was suddenly flooded with new knowledge about the plague and a potion to cure the plague. With his new potion, he could not cure the sick but also prevent anyone from getting infected in the future. But unfortunately, his knowledge about the plague also came bearing a piece of bad news. According to Jennifer's condition, she didn't have much longer to live. At most, she had 2 days with the constant supply of healing potion. Eve. When Michael finally turned his gaze towards Eve, her heart almost skipped a beat. She shivered, waiting for his next words. I have the cure, but we need to find the ingredients fast. Since time was of the essence, Michael even tried to buy the ingredients from the system store, but the system required 600,000 badass points. Even if he took along, he wouldn't get 600,000 badass points. Hence, the only way to get the ingredients was to buy them somewhere. But hearing Michael's words, Eve's face brightened and at last, a relieved smile appeared on her face. Anything. Bunyip bone, Hydra hook, Dryad lock, Behemoth eye, Naga scale, Walperdinger antler, and Plague barberry. You don't have any of these back in the castle. We need to buy them somewhere and we need them fast. Your sister has only 2 days. Eve shuddered, hearing his last words. In a blink of an eye, her mind was flooded with the sweet memories she had with her little sister since they were little. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to the Aqua Palace and buy these. I am pretty sure they have everything you need. Nightmare always tried to stay positive, but Gaia shook her head, sighing. Aqua Palace is in Kingdom Sil Allery, not in Thera. We will go to Sil Allery. I don't give a damn about the lockdown. I will kill anyone who stands in my way, Eve said with a stern, dominating voice despite her condition. However, Gaia knew that the lockdown wasn't the only obstacle they had. Visit. For a better user experience, it would take at least 2 days to reach Sil Allery. But I have a way and you might not like it. Gaia paused for a few moments before shocking Eve with her words. The rock guards have a portal to get to Sil Allery. Instead, Michael decided to modify the plague strain with the help of the system to only affect fusion and soul refining stage cultivators. This new modified strain wouldn't mutate and was easily fused with the fear toxin. That's good. How does it work anyways? Nightmare asked Michael. Once you breathe in the newly enhanced fear toxin, you will experience coughing, vomiting blood, and losing control over your celestial and arch energy. Boom! In a couple of minutes, you are nothing but a commoner. I assume you will modify our masks too? Asked Gaia. Since they hadn't taken the cure yet, the modified fear toxin was dangerous to them. Therefore, Michael had to buy 3 masks from the system and modify them. Luckily, it was a simple task for Michael as he was a 5-star inventor and possessed all the necessary parts. But first, Michael needed to finish modifying the plague. At that moment, black essence beads floated about the green flames. These beads radiated an ominous smoke as Michael slowly merged them together. After which, Michael sent the flesh and the strand of hair into the fire and burnt them. When the flesh and hair burnt in the fire, Gay and Nightmare closed their mouth and nose with their hands. The strong scent was nauseating to the point Gaia felt like throwing up. Soon, a crimson-red smoke gradually emerged from the green flame and merged with the dark ball of essence above the flame. The two mixed together to form a mysterious smoking goo that swam in the air like a fish. Gaia and Nightmare sighed in relief, thinking he had finished, but Michael had only completed half the process. Go stall Eve, Michael told Nightmare as the dragon nodded, shrunk its size, and walked towards the carriage. Meanwhile, Michael rolled up his sleeves, revealing the dark bracelet around his right wrist. "Remove it." Michael asked Gaia to remove the bracelet as he controlled the plague goo with his other hand. Instead, Gaia gently tapped the bracelet and lifted it from his wrist. Screech. The latest _AP_SODs are on website. When Michael willed the APD to come off his wrist, the bracelet split in the middle, and the needles inside Michael's wrist retracted. After Gaia removed the APD, Michael moved the dark goo above the flame, but this time, the fire turned from jade green to black. The heat produced by the dark flames immediately vaporized the black goo as Michael surrounded the vapor with his arch energy and pulled it into a large vial. As soon as the dark vapor entered the vial, Michael closed it with the cork. "Now I have to mix it with the fear toxin." Michael took out another vial with a gray liquid inside. With utmost caution, Michael pulled out the liquid through a syringe and injected the liquid into the plague vial through the cork. To his surprise, when the vapor and liquid made contact, it sparks a purple flame. The flame burnt brightly for a few moments until finally condensed into a dark, dusty element. "This will be our weapon for ultimate domination," Michael devilishly grinned, looking at the dark vial in his hand. "So, have you given any thought to mixing the blood tonic into the cure? I thought you would never ask. Unfortunately, the cure won't work with the blood tonic mixed in. It's only a setback though. I will find a better cure in the future which could be mixed with the blood tonic." Michael really tried to squeeze the blood tonic into the cure, but the formula simply didn't allow it. The cure had to be in its purest form. Otherwise, it wouldn't heal the infected and prevent one from getting infected. "We would have been gods if it worked," Gaia sighed. "Yeah." Michael opened the compartment connected to the needles in APD and put the one in his hand inside. "You can't use the fear toxin while you are in your ghost persona." Gaia was indeed right. If Eve noticed the effects of the fear toxin and saw the Dark Lord using it by any chance, she could make the connection between Ghost and the Dark Lord. Hence, Michael quickly brewed another modified plague and enclosed it in vials without mixing with the FAR toxin. He made several vials and handed over a few of them to Gaia before taking out the 3 black masks from the system storage. They were in no shape or form but plain black respirator masks. A few minutes later, Nightmare walked out of the carriage with Eve. He couldn't stall Eve any longer. But fortunately, Michael finished everything, including modifying the masks to filter the plague. Gaia noticed a healing potion in Eve's hand. Before speaking a word, Eve opened up the vial and emptied the potion into her mouth. "I am ready," Eve said after emptying the vial. "You have a plan to wipe them out? I have to tell you, they have 4 fusion stage protectors. The latest _SODs are on their website. The more, the better," Michael grinned, thinking about the experience points he would get by killing fusion stage cultivators. Now that Michael had given it a thought, it would be his first time killing a fusion stage cultivator. He wondered how many experience and badass points as a reward. With the modified plague in his hand, Michael didn't even fear the fusion stage cultivators. Finally, after so long, he felt like he was in control of every part of the game. "Follow my lead, and House Rotgard will cease to exist when the sun rise." Michael put on the mask as his voice changed to something beastly. Gaia put on the mask and threw the other one at Eve. "Nightmare, stay here and make sure nothing happens to them. Don't worry about them. I got this," Nightmare said with absolute confidence. Soon, he grew to his full size, casting a shadow upon the trio, making them look puny in front of Nightmare. "Let's go." With a nod, Michael shot out towards the sky and disappeared into the night sky, leaving Nightmare behind. Michael let Gaia take the lead as he flew closer to Eve in case she lost the connection with the arch energy again. Michael was not completely optimistic about bringing Eve with him, but knowing her, there was no way she would back down and let them go alone. If everything went according to Michael's plan, Eve wouldn't have to raise a finger against the rock guards. "Hey Eve, how much do you think I can make by selling the cure?" Eve was surprised by his sudden question. "Millions." Eve's heart was heavy. Although she knew Ghost wouldn't take coins from them for the cure, she hated to be a freeloader. No matter what, Eve wanted to repay for everything he did somehow. Hey Eve, if you're worried about getting the cure for free, don't. I'm not giving it to you for free. I want Voldegards to be my allies and help set up my majestic empire in R. Anything for you, my friend. Eve placed his hand on his shoulder and revealed an alluring smile that hid the immense sorrow in her heart. And thank you. The latest understudies are on the website. Hey, friends, don't say thanks. I am pretty sure you will get to save my ass once or twice in the future. Michael patted Eve on the back and continued their journey towards Yesrius to wipe out the rock guards. A few days ago, Ethan and Imelda followed Diana into her room in the Winston Manor. Diane, stop! Imelda called out to stop Diana, who strolled into her room, blasting the door open. After she entered, Ethan quickly closed the door behind her. Despite Imelda calling her repeatedly, Diana didn't even turn around but rushed into the room. After entering the room, Diana walked straight to the book rack beside the black bed. Diane, please listen to us. Ethan slowly approached Diana as she pulled out a crimson-red book from the neatly stacked books on the rack. As soon as she pulled out the book, a golden light enveloped Diana before the orange curtains were replaced by dark curtains, turning the room dark. But the chandelier hanging down the ceiling lit the room as Imelda saw the book's rack slowly moving aside. Imelda was startled to see the dark robes, black swords, and daggers on the wall behind the book rack. A cold chill ran down her spine, looking at the wall because it reminded her of the memories Imelda desperately tried to forget. Diane, just stop and think about this. You cannot go up against the Guardians. Ethan tried to stop Diana, but no matter how many times Ethan called her, Diana simply didn't bother to listen to him. Instead, she waved her hand as her golden robes turned dark. The next moment, the dark robes on the wall slowly floated to Diana. You still have them. Imelda stuttered while Diana put on the robes and the dark black long coat over the robes. She was about to take the two black swords when Ethan placed his hand on Diana's shoulder. Listen to us, Diane. Please. I am done listening. Ethan had never heard a colder voice than Diana's, but, to be honest, it frightened him. But still, Ethan didn't back down as he turned her around using his strength because, despite her look, she was a hell of a lot stronger than him. When she finally turned around, her cold gaze swept across Ethan, pushing him a few meters away from her. Diana, what's all this? I thought you put that life behind you. Imelda stuttered. Visit. For a better user experience, Diana, I know how you feel. I am furious too, but we cannot let our anger blind our judgment. We cannot go against the Guardians. If the Sky Hall knew you're back into cultivation, they would imprison you. In the worst case, they would. Ethan couldn't finish his sentence, saying they would kill her. They caged our daughter. They tortured her. Diana clenched her fist, speaking each word with dead coldness. Everything was orchestrated by the Guardians so they could get something they wanted. It's the vampires who kidnapped Sabi? Imelda swallowed the fear in her heart to utter these words. They were just an arrow. The one who fired the arrow was the Guardians. Ethan growled. It was true that Ethan didn't want Diana to go against the Guardian. However, it didn't mean he wasn't furious. Seeing Diana in black hair and dark robes, Imelda shivered from head to toe. Once upon a time, an entire continent feared her. Then, after 2 decades, what Imelda thought she buried returned alive to haunt her. Remember the words you said before leaving our Ethan. You made a promise to always stand by my side. Do not break that promise now. Step aside. Diana coldly said as Ethan saw a blue light flickering in her eyes. Diana, please. Boom. Ethan tried to change her mind, but he was sent crashing onto the wall behind by a strong gust of wind. I am sick of you two trying to change my mind. Diana roared before stomping the ground with enough force to shake the entire room. The wall crumbled, and cracks formed where Ethan hit before falling down. Afterward, Ethan couldn't get to his feet. Not because Ethan was hurt physically, but because he was hurt mentally. This was the first time Diana had cast a spell on him in a long time. It was equal to her raising her hand against Ethan. Ethan! Imelda quickly rushed to Ethan to lift him up while Diana walked towards the window and opened them with a wave of her hand. Diana! Imelda shouted, but it was too late as Diana flew out the window. However, before her figure disappeared, Sabrina opened the door. Unfortunately for Diana, Sabrina saw her figure. For a few moments, Sabrina just stared at the open windows. Only then did she notice Ethan on the ground. Visit. For a better user experience, Father. Sabrina dashed at Ethan and quickly helped him up. What happened? Was that Mother? No! Imelda immediately shrieked, denying the truth. Ethan, on the other hand, just remained in silence. He was too shocked to focus on anything. Even after getting blasted by Diana, Ethan didn't feel any anger toward Diana. Instead, he blamed himself for being weak and powerless to help her. Noah had tried to make Ethan stronger by making him break through to the core strengthening stage. Ethan had been stuck in core formation level 10 for 7 years now. But no matter how many potions Noah gave him, he simply couldn't destroy the bottleneck. What Noah had no idea that Skyhall placed a curse on Ethan. He was to stay at the core formation level until he died. Ethan was Skyhall's backup plan to control Harriet. However, when Harriet fought the angels and the forbidden spell for 30 days, another group of elders tortured Ethan and placed several curses on his soul. The only difference between Diana and Ethan was that at least Imelda was there with Diana. Then where is she? What happened to Father? Sabrina brushed away the dust off Ethan's robes and corrected his collar. Go to your room, Sabi. As soon as Sabrina began to question them, Imelda tried to push Sabrina out of the room, but Sabrina didn't even budge an inch. Imelda did not want to reveal the truth about Diana to Sabrina or to anyone. She would rather die than reveal Diana's secret. Stop treating me like a child, Auntie. I want to know the truth. I told you everything. Angie and I deserve to be treated with the same respect. Sabrina raised her voice, shocking both of them and snapping Ethan out of the shock. That was Mother. It was... Ethan took a deep breath and answered Sabrina. Ethan. Imelda quickly tried to stop Ethan, but he shook his head. He didn't want to hide Diana's identity from Sabrina. After all, Sabrina told them the truth, and Ethan wanted Sabrina to know the truth about her mother. The question in his mind was whether to let Noah and Rowena know the truth as well or not. She deserves to know, Imelda, Ethan said to Imelda and turned his gaze towards Sabrina. Your mother Diana is not always Diana. Her real name was Harriet. Harriet Hunt? What? Sabrina's heart skipped a beat as she began to shiver. Visit. For a better user experience, Harriet. Harriet Hunt. Sabrina's mind completely went back, recalling the stories she heard and lessons she learned from Holy Trident Academy. Harriet Hunt was a myth, a legend, a war goddess who walked among mortals. To hear Harriet Hunt was her mother and lived as Diana, Sabrina's mind couldn't process the shocking news. What have you done, Ethan? Tears gushed out of Imelda's eyes as she collapsed to the ground. Michael witnessed everything happening in the throne hall through the drone. Igor surprised Michael with his words. Unlike the old cahoots, Igor actually wanted to strengthen House Rotgard through other means than waging war against the other houses. I have a limit too, Lord. When Ivan was about to rise from the throne, Igor said, gritting his teeth, a limit for my patience. How dare you? One of the elders growled at Igor only to be ignored by the latter. I wish I have taken the Empress' offer to join her clan. Igor snickered as Ivan's eyes reddened in pure hatred for Igor. While they were busy quarreling, they didn't notice the change in the air. Unknowing to them, they were breathing the fear toxin mixed with the plague. Michael felt lucky to get all the protectors and the House Lord under the same roof. It made poisoning them with the fear toxin a much easier task. Otherwise, he would have had to find each fusion stage cultivator and poison them individually. His only regret was Igor. Michael couldn't help feeling Igor would have made a fine asset in his growing army. Unlike most people in the world, the young man seemed to possess intelligence and rational thinking. It was a pity Igor was getting infected as they spoke. The only reason you stand before me is our ancestor care for Iranian. Ivan spoke coldly. Iranian was Igor's late father, and when Igor heard his name from Ivan's mouth, Igor felt his anger bubbling deep within him. Because of their old ways and hatred for Voldegards, Igor lost all his family. Deep down, Igor hated Ivan and the Protectors more than he hated the Voldegards. I hope our ancestor will be delighted to see House Rotgard faces several new threats in a few years. But, suppose you think destroying Voldegards would make your lives easier. In that case, you guys are in for a shitty surprise. Igor sneered and stood up before Ivan. He was about to turn around and leave when Igor sensed the change in his body as well as in the air. Suddenly, an elder stumbled down from his chair. "Protector Cyan," another elder shouted and reached out for the fallen comrade only to stumble down like the other. Soon, the 4 protectors fell to the ground, vomiting blood. What the fuck is happening to me? Igor was not in a better condition as his legs gave up. As a result, Igor collapsed down. His vision turned blurry. Nonetheless, Igor rubbed his eyes, hoping it would clear his vision. While Igor tried to regain his strength, he heard the elders finally stop throwing up blood. A few seconds later, the protectors returned to their feet. With his blurry vision, Igor looked up to see Ivan rising from his throne and wiping the blood coming off his mouth. Visit. For a better user experience, since Ivan was stronger than everyone in the hall, the fear toxin affected him less. Are we infected? No shit, Igor coughed, closing his mouth. When he took his hand off his mouth, he saw the blood sprinkles on his palm. You must have gotten from the Voldegards. It's you. You sealed us our fate. You fool. You doomed us all. The protectors immediately blamed Igor and yelled at him. We must contact our ancestor before we succumb to the plague. Ivan, however, remained calm, unlike the rest. Roar! Suddenly an ear-piercing shriek echoed through the hall. Intruder! Another loud shout followed the shriek, sending shivers down their spines. We are under attack. Igor could hear someone shouting outside. As soon as they heard the alarm, soldiers of House Rotgard rushed into the hall, including the 2 soul-refining stage guards who guarded the main gate. No, you idiots! Get out of here! Igor shouted at the soldiers who rushed into the hall to protect their lords. However, they were startled to hear Igor's orders. We all be infected if we stay together like this. Igor was right, but as usual, no one listened to him. So instead, they surrounded Ivan and the protectors. Raise the gates. No one is getting in or outside. I want the intruder's head on the plate before the first light. Ivan barked an order before turning around to leave the throne hall. Visit. For a better user experience, he was in quite a rush to meet his ancestor, who may be their best chance to survive the plague. What's the rush? Out of the blue, another calm voice resonated in the hall. The voice, however, didn't sound like a human but a beast. What the? Who was that? Am I hearing things? The soldiers looked around frantically, trying to locate the voice's source. Creak, creak, creak. Igor's heart skipped a beat as he jerked his head around to look at the front door leading outside. The door shuddered, glowing for a second. Following the front door, the doors on the left and right sides also glowed and shuddered. Looking at the phenomenon on the doors, a curious soldier rushed towards the door. He tried to open the door, but no matter how hard he pushed, the door didn't budge. It's locked. Igor sighed. Someone locked us in the same hall. Now we are all stuck here to get infected by the plague. Igor just sat on the ground, rubbing his temples. Is it true? My lords, what should we do? A panic-stricken soldier questioned the protectors and Ivan. Every single soldier, including the soul refiners, felt weak and coughed up blood. In addition, Some of the soldiers began to hallucinate and shouted in gibberish. "Break the door!" One of the protectors barked as a group of soldiers limped towards the front door. "It's too late. We are done for." Those who heard Igor panicked more. Visit. For a better user experience, shut up, Igor. Ivan roared as he couldn't put up with Igor anymore. Ivan had enough in his mind, so he couldn't be patient with Igor as he used to. The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. Accept him. Kill everyone. Michael surprised himself by killing a mighty fusion stage cultivator like he was nothing. However, the killing came with a shock that he wasn't aware of yet. The protectors and soldiers looked pale and shivered after witnessing Ivan's sudden death. Even Eve's heart shuddered seeing Ghost's power. She was glad Ghost was on her side. On the other hand, Gaia conjured a fireball and snapped her fingers, turning the ball of fire into a long arrow. Considering she was in her Ilia persona, she could not use the powerful spells in her arsenal. Almost all her spells utilized her poison, which radiated an emerald green mist. Fortunately, the weakest spell, like the fire arrow, could kill the sick soldiers. "You should blow off some steam by killing them," Gaia advised Eve. Gaia's voice pulled Eve out of her shock. "Ah yeah," Eve nodded. She felt no remorse or pity for the House Rotgard soldiers after she witnessed Rotgard massacring her family members. After killing Ivan, Michael put the fear of God in everyone's hearts. Moreover, the fear toxin terrorized their brains by enhancing their fear several folds. In a blink of an eye, Michael appeared before a protector and grabbed him by his neck. "Grrrgh." The old man punched Michael's hand and kicked him in the gut, trying to escape his hold. Yet all of his attempts yielded no fruits. Finally, with a simple flick of his wrist, Michael took out the jade dagger he used to carve the elf's decayed body. Pulch! Michael plugged the dagger as deep as he could through the old man's rib cage. The blood splashed across Igor's face, snapping him out of shock. Still, Igor couldn't even take a step toward the black-masked monster who killed his uncle in a blink of an eye. Igor knew he should feel anger and fury, but surprisingly, he didn't feel anything. Instead, his hatred and disappointment towards the protectors and his uncle reached a point that Igor couldn't care less about them. However, Igor hated dying in the throne hall. He had so much to live for. Despite the obvious death, Igor sighed and decided to die like a man, then begged them for mercy. The elder who got stabbed was just at his arm's length, but Igor felt no urge to save him. Instead, Igor stared at the dark-robed figure stabbing the elder again and again and again until the elder's white robes turned red. It was not a kill but a statement. Seeing the brutality, the rest trembled in overwhelming fear, which caused some of them to lose consciousness and hallucinate. Michael dropped the dead protector down and stomped the head, crushing the skull under his feet. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a fusion stage, level 2 cultivator. The reward is 750,000 experience points and 10,000 badass points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the fusion stage level 2. The fear tightened Igor's muscles as his legs refused to move even though the killer was walking toward him. Shit. Igor panicked and tried to step back only to fail. Taking a few steps, the killer reached him. However, the killer walked past him instead of killing him as Igor expected. Boom! Visit. For the best no experience, on the other hand, Eve leaped into the air, and in the mid-air, she flicked her wrist as a golden-spiked mace materialized in her hand. She brought down the mace upon the soul-refining stage guard. The poor soul tried to cast a spell to leap away as his body and mind were trained to cast spells. But he forgot that he had lost his ability to cast spells. As a result, he didn't move an inch until Eve brought down the spiked mace on his head. The golden mace crushed his skull as bits and pieces scattered across the hall, and a few chunks ended up on some soldiers' faces. Some soldiers outright fainted on the spot and got stepped on by Michael on his way to the two protectors. Seeing Michael walking toward them, the two protectors lost their courage to fight. Instead, they turned their backs on Michael, running towards the door as fast as they could. Move! They shoved off the soldiers who remained in their path. Not in a million years would they have imagined running for their life. But, despite the overwhelming fear, Igor focused his gaze on the killer, trying to figure out his cultivation stage. Igor got confused as no matter how hard he focused, he couldn't see the cultivation stage of the killer. Arg! His focus on the killer got broken by the fire arrow that flew past his face and penetrated the soldiers who stood around him. The arrow didn't stop at killing a few but flew through the soldiers, ending their lives. In a few moments, the shiny marble floor was flooded with blood, and the throne hall became a tomb for many. The soldiers didn't stand a chance against Eve, let alone Michael and Gaia. While controlling the fire arrow and killing the soldiers, Gaia admired Eve's persistence. Regardless of the plague, Eve pushed herself to the limit and caused havoc among the soldiers like a killing machine. Suppose anyone in Eve's shoes had been bedridden. The plague turned the fusion stage cultivators into weaklings. Yet, it couldn't stop Eve, who was only a core-strengthening stage warrior. Of course, Eve drank several vials of healing potions, but Gaia knew more than the healing potions. It was persistence and endurance that fueled her. Boom! 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 Eve swung the mace without any finesse or technique in all directions. The soldiers screamed and begged for mercy, but Eve was in a raging mood. She kept hitting the soldiers mercilessly as she vented all her rage and hatred upon the soldiers. Meanwhile, Michael caught the two fusion stage protectors who banged the door like crazy. At that moment, Gaia and Eve killed almost a third of the soldiers in the hall, including the two soul refining stage cultivators. Igor witnessed the brutal massacre and the fall of his house and stood still. He was weak and scared to do anything. Didn't you two want to wipe out the Voldegards a few moments ago? Michael whispered in their ears as their bodies went rigid. The protectors slowly turned around. Visit. For the best no-RNG experience for a few seconds, Michael just stared at them. Afterward, Michael just grabbed their heads and smashed them against the door the protectors tried so hard to open. Michael kept going until the two protectors lost their heads, and he received the notifications from the system. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a fusion stage, level 3 cultivator. The reward is 750,000 experience points and 10,000 badass points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the fusion stage level 3. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a fusion stage, level 3 cultivator. The reward is 750,000 experience points and 10,000 badass points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the fusion stage level 4. After reaching fusion stage level 4, Michael felt a warm wave soothing him from behind. The feeling made him smile and close his eyes. When he looked up with his eyes closed, the throne hall grew a bit darker for a moment, and the chandeliers flickered. Fortunately, the phenomenon disappeared before Eve could notice the change. Michael felt his power growing within him. Eve creased her brows, seeing Ghost standing still without moving. No one dared to stay close to him. Please don't kill me. No. Have mercy. Lord Igor. Save us. The remaining soldiers went to their knees and began begging for mercy. Some even grabbed Igor's legs, pleading with him to save them. But unfortunately, Igor had no power or will to save them. Instead, Igor was stuck in a state of utter fear and shock. On the other hand, Michael remained with his eyes closed until the screams and cries died down, and the hall became deadly silent. At that moment, they only spared Igor's life but scarred him for life. It would take years for Igor to come out of the trauma caused by the three of them. Show us the portal to Sil Allery. Gaia grabbed Igor by his neck and asked. Despite her cold tone, Igor said no word. Instead, he looked like his mind was somewhere else. The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. Hey! Gaia slapped Igor to bring him out of shock. Where is the portal to Sil Allery? Gaia asked again, shaking Igor by his collar. Portal? Sil Allery. Igor mumbled. Leave him. I know where it is. Michael finally opened his mouth. He located the portal through the drones and spiders, so they had no need to threaten Igor. Michael spared Igor not because he wanted to know the portal's location, but because he wanted Igor to consider joining Voldegards. It was apparent Igor hated the Protectors and the House Lord. Now that he had killed them, Michael wished to rope Igor into joining Voldegards. Michael turned around and slowly walked towards Igor. When he reached Igor, he just patted Igor on the face. House Rotgard is no more. Now you are finally free. Michael then placed his hand on Igor's blood-soaked chest. Boom! Suddenly a powerful gust of wind shot Igor away onto the wall behind. The force of Igor hitting the wall made him lose consciousness. After Igor collapsed on the ground, Michael looked around at the dead bodies in the hall. An eye for an eye, Michael stated, feeling no pity. Every soldier they killed had blood on their hands. A few days ago, they massacred the Voldegards. At that time, the soldiers of House Rotgard didn't show any mercy to Voldegards. So why should Michael show them any mercy? Michael only killed the strongest of the Rotgards and spared the rest so they could spread the word about what happened to them. Let's go. Michael walked away from the dead bodies and entered the corridor through the door the two Protectors tried to open. As soon as they opened the door, a few guards tried to attack them, but Gaia killed them before they could even raise their weapons. By the time they entered an empty room where House Rotgard had built the portal, the sun rose up on the horizon, shedding its first light on the kingdom. Just as Michael told Eve, the House Rotgard had ceased to exist at the first light. Finally, Eve stood before the portal after so much trouble and blood. Next stop, Sil Allery, Gaia stated before walking into the dark blue vortex. Following Gaia, Michael walked into the portal and disappeared. At last, Eve took a deep breath. Great 1 and 2, please let me save my family. Eve prayed, looking at the ceiling. Then, she walked into the portal with a ray of hope and heaviness in her heart. The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. You're tuning in to the Legend of the Vagabond YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.